Attention podcast listener, we've got an exciting new podcast coming just for patrons of patreon.com/Talking Simpsons.
Talking Futurama Season 2 Part 1 has begun exclusively for our $5 and up patrons on the Talking Simpsons Network. That's the first 10 episodes of Futurama coming to you once a week.
So just sign up for $5 a month at patreon.com/Talking Simpsons, and you'll get Talking Futurama Season 2 and all of our limited miniseries, including the entirety of Talking Futurama Season 1. That's 13 episodes.
That is patreon.com/Talking Simpsons. Now please enjoy the rest of this podcast.
Cartoons from present in the past. Every week will be an animated bash. What a cartoon! What a cartoon! Maybe a short but mostly shows. We'll talk, we'll analyze, exploring as we go. What a cartoon! What a cartoon! What a cartoon! What a cartoon!
Hello, everybody, and welcome to What a Cartoon, where we smile because it's over. I'm your host, the Unstuck in Time, Bob Mackey, and this is an audio exploration of every cartoon ever who is here with me today.
Sadly, now in the 35 plus demo, Henry Gilbert.
Oh, no. Who else do we have?
Ian, thank you for watching the show, Jones-Quart.
Very nice. And who else do we have?
I'm everywhere! Toby Jones. That's not from this episode, but I just like it.
I approve. And today's episode is the OKKO Let's Be Heroes episode. Thank you for watching the show.
My name is KO, and I work at Gar's Bodega.
That's from the episode before this one.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
But yes, Ian and Toby are back once again to discuss their cartoon OKKO, the finale episode, which aired on September 6, 2019.
My birthday.
Hey, all right. Thanks for having
Happy
us.
bittersweet birthday.
And if in case you missed our last episode, I believe it was early 2019 that they were on for a discussion of 2 episodes of OKKO.
Yes.
I think the episode came out in March, so and the news hadn't spread at that time. I didn't realize we were 6 months away from the finale when we did it. But,
Yeah, so close.
We tried our best to keep on a strong face.
Yes.
You can go back and hear all the clues you dropped in.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, probably.
I think I asked you guys, like, what's in the future for OKKO? And there's like a little chuckle that tells the story now.
Yeah,
Who knows?
Yeah, I mean, that was also a really weird time because we weren't really on air at that time.
No, that's true.
The show came back really, really strong with the whole rest of the second season and then the third season, but we were on a pretty long dry spell at that point of being released.
We had a tentative plan about how like the rest of season 2 and season 3 were going to come out, but at that time we didn't know if that was really going to happen.
Yeah, like
so.
we had definitely learned if someone says, "Hey, the show's going to be on television," we'll be like, "Well, we'll wait and see."
Yeah, exactly.
But it did happen, and we had a really good presence on air for most of the summer and through the year.
Yeah.
That I really enjoyed.
No, it actually ended up really good, and a lot of people went along with the ride for the final season, which was great.
Now that finale week was the end of a long drought in a lot of ways, because it was also the Steven Universe movie, which was the first new Steven Universe since the finale in January. And so that was on Monday, and then Friday was 45-minute finale of OKKO.
Yeah, I think there was at one point a plan to air the two things on the same night.
Yes,
and it was
originally.
like, please don't do that.
Yeah, we were like,
just because the movie, the Steven movie is so incredible.
It'll
it's like, it needs
steamroll anything.
Yeah, it needs as much blast radius as
Yeah.
possible. Yeah, so I thought it worked out all right.
Listeners should check out the first one for the history of how OKKO came together. That's all explained there, so we're not going to double up on that here. So I guess, when did you guys find out that the third season would be your last season?
So what's kind of funny about that, the timing of when we found out, the show had been out for less than a year, and they told us that they're axing us, and it was... I don't know.
Well,
what can be said about that time?
Yeah, the way it kind of worked was that we were full steam ahead on season 3, and we were writing outlines for what was to be season 3A, and we had written 20, the full. We'd written
the whole thing.
We had just finished episode 20 of the season, and then we were told, "Hey,
episode 20 is going to be
that's going to be
last
the end
episode.
of the show."
Yeah,
and then we were like, "Oh, that's very bad.
Yes.
We don't like that." And we had received there was some degree of indication to us in advance, but it still was unwelcome news that we weren't exactly prepared for.
It was a bit of a surprise.
Yeah, and so the way it worked was, we talked to the network about it, and we were like, hey, production on the season 3 had just barely begun.
Yeah, we just started doing maybe like the first board.
Yeah, and so we saw, what Ian would call a crisitunity in this moment where we were like, we still have our writers and we still have quite a bit of time before most of these episodes are supposed to get handed out to the storyboard artists. So we said like, hey, this being the situation that these 20 are all we have, we would like to keep the writers on and restructure the entire third season to be a final season pretty much from the jump.
Because originally 20 episodes into season 3 was the big reveal.
Big reveal was the mid-season episode.
That was the mid-season finale.
Yeah, and the network agreed to this. Yeah. And they also were in a situation where the network basically was like, we understand this is not what you guys want, and so they also creatively were like, do what you need to do, basically. They were like, we understand this is not a good situation for you, and so whatever you need to do to reach a satisfying finale, do it.
The show's current executive, Conrad Montgomery, who was also the series' current executive on Adventure Time, regular show, Steven Universe, Craig of the Creek, so many other things. He was also our current executive, and so he really knows the value of like telling a full story and getting it. Like on all those shows, he's always pushed for, oh, you should get to do an ending. You should get to tell the whole story.
Yeah, all those shows have, great final episodes of them to really wrap everything up. Yeah.
So he really supported us, and we were just like, look, we need this runway to enough runway to tell the stories we want to tell. Yeah. Sorry if not every outline you see is going to be your favorite type of episode, but we have to get the story to the place we need to get it.
Yeah, and he was completely understanding and supportive of all of that. He just gave us he's a huge fan of the show, and so he gave us very fan forward notes about just ways to make it the best piece of entertainment possible. And basically the way it worked was we had a lot of choices to make, because we had 20 episodes that were really fun, and it was the show. We had a lot of delightful different types of episodes, and we had a lot of conversations about, okay, how story-driven does season 3 become? Because the amount of story-driven, the story-drivenness of season 3 is not really the show as we know it.
No.
And it's not really true to the tone of the show, which is to say that all the story points, that's the story we always wanted to tell, but we would have just liked to have more one-off stories in between. But we just made a call.
Yeah. We basically, unfortunately, we just tossed out all of the silly one-off ideas. So basically, it's the entire season, which would have been double length, but we just shrunk out all of the one-off adventures. So
I was wondering how much of that you had to cull of your original idea.
Well, there were 20. Again, basically, we threw out, I would say, between 5 and 10 episodes that were finished, and none of them were story-driven. They were all just fun, cool. Because again, Series 3, I keep calling it Series 3 because I keep talking about Infinity Train with Maddie and Owen, and so they keep calling it. Anyway, the point is, season 3 was pitched as all about hey, they're heroes now and they're going on wacky, fun hero missions and exploring the world. Yeah. And there are a handful of episodes that do that.
We had a bunch of those lined up.
Yeah. And basically, there were certain episodes that we left in. An episode like Deep Space Vacation, for example, is an episode we could have thrown out, but we left it to be emblematic of the kinds of stories we wanted to tell if we had done more seasons. It's like there are a bunch of self-contained episodes in season 3, and they were chosen very meticulously to represent certain things.
Like Let's Meet Sonic, for instance. That's like an episode that could have very easily be cut, but you know, we're not going to cut that one.
No way. No way.
And then stuff like Planet X, we really wanted to show that for Rad, and even a relatively small seeming episode like Radical Rescue, that is a small scale episode that takes place at the Plaza, but it also completes Rad's character arc. So that's an example of the kinds of choices we were making, that every single episode had a value, even if it wasn't necessarily moving the quote unquote main storyline forward.
One of the things we talk about in the writers' room a lot is King of the Hill, and how the character arcs in that show work, and how they're so gradual and so small, but that by the time you get to the final season, you're realizing you're seeing every character's arc come to a close. But it's been so long, and the episodes are inconsequential episodes, but you're like, oh, that's where they're leaving this character. That's where they're leaving this character.
Yep, and like You're a Good Friend KO is an example of that.
Yeah.
You know, it seems like a fairly small scale Dendi episode, but the goal of that episode was really to kind of give Dendi a send off for her character arc.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of conversations about that, and we had like 10 different spreadsheets of different episodes and what they should be to fill the entire season to create the best possible version of the season. And you know, we basically made the call to tell the story in full, which means that there were fewer self-contained wacky episodes, and just simply because, you know, I don't want to get too how do I put this? No matter what you do with an ending, people are going to call it rushed, but we tried to make it as non-rushed as physically possible as far as the actual ramp up to KO's story.
Yeah.
But I liked when you guys could even make jokes about it feeling rushed, like mostly Boxman saying like, we should stretch this out till next season. Like,
yeah, because I mean that's true. You know,
That was just true.
yeah, and like admittedly, you know, Big Reveal got moved earlier, and then the funny thing is that episode isn't rushed at all. That episode is exactly what we wanted it to
really?
be.
Okay.
You know, the episode Big Reveal, like we had that specific episode in that way planned years in advance.
I think we wrote that, like in season 1. We were like, when we finally do the reveal, let's find the dumbest, most anticlimactic way to do it, because we all, you know, it's like we all have like this ingrained story math about like hero stories about like, you know, oh, when do you do like this cool showpiece of the reveal? Let's make an anti-reveal.
yeah, let's talk about Big Reveal since that came up. And I will say to listeners, if you haven't watched season 3 of OKKO, this is spoiler town now, so just you're gonna
That's
get
true.
spoiled. Yeah,
But it's also kind of hard to spoil the show because it's so wacky.
But also, depending on where you watch it on Amazon, I think it's labeled season 6.
Oh,
so
yeah.
we should be clear about what season 3
That's true.
means to people who are trying to find it.
Hopefully, HBO Max will save everything.
I guess
Let's not count on that.
So I guess what is the first production season 3? So that'll be with the start of the spoilers, I guess.
We Are Heroes.
We Are Heroes
Yeah.
was the
Yeah.
first episode
First
of
season 3.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, and that's the one that sets the tone of them going on adventures together and their cool costumes. And I love, and also like the new crew who takes over the bodega while they're out. Like I love that. Yeah,
there was an episode about that. We had an episode all about them auditioning for who would be the like 2 of them had already been picked, and they were auditioning for who the third person would be join the bodega to take their.
It was going to be like America's Got Talent, but like that, but also, you know, like Legion of Superheroes when they're like do the tryouts.
Oh, I love those comics.
Yeah,
those are great.
Yeah, and so it was unfortunately, because I wish there were more episodes. You know, that was one of the first ones we threw out, and it was a fully written, approved, ready to board outline that was honestly, I think, inches from getting handed out to storyboard, and we threw it out, and then we basically were like, okay, we have to thread in these new bodega employees kind of in the background. Which again, it's fine.
Did you find yourself reusing jokes or gags or ideas from these scrapped outlines?
Unfortunately, I don't know if the closest thing was in Thank You for Watching the Show.
Yeah, a lot of them got repurposed for that.
We did reuse some of those ideas, like, you know, Garnet's appearance. That is from a scrapped episode called Summer of Garnet, which is like a full Garnet crossing over into OKKO, Usagi Yojimbo style kind of episode.
And the Squeezo one was going to be a Halloween special about Squeezo, things like that. So, like, for when it comes to, and we'll get to that later, but the stuff in the final episode, like, some of them are actual episodes we were going to do, and some of them are specific to what we were doing in that story.
And then the third episode is when TKO comes back, and I mean, was that the start of when you guys were really building in, knowing the finale?
Totally.
Because that episode, we were about to hand it out when we heard the thing, and we realized, we can keep everything exactly the same, but we have to change the ending, because we were always going to do, our whole plan was we were going to put TKO back under into the subconscious, but that was going to happen a lot later. We realized, we have to move that up and do that now as soon as possible.
And it ended up being a really, really, really good fit, because the episode, I think it's very fitting that KO it would be the last straw with KO under something that seems very minor.
Yeah.
Because that's just the kind of character he is and,
Yeah.
and kind of where his moral standing is at. And so we talked about the episode, and it was just kind of like, do we have any reason to not throw out this episode? Because it seemed kind of small. And we had this conversation about like, how can we use it to tee up the story and where it was going to go. And so, yeah, from right there, the third episode of the season, we are already in finale territory in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Yeah, watching that in the second time, it was where it really felt like, oh, okay, this is the first real seed of the finale getting planted here. Yeah.
Oh my God! When the storyboard pitch for that episode happened, when Mira pitched that part, everyone just freaked out.
Yeah,
they were just like they just could not believe it, and like because the scene is like so intentionally upsetting.
Yes.
And it's like it's very cool
to see KO do like kind of like he's so cold when he's just burying TKO in his subconscious. It's not what you expect from cheery KO all the time. Yeah. Well, and then also in that scene, like when I saw, I believe it came out after we did our Evangelion podcast together.
Oh yeah,
and that has the elevator scene in it too.
Yeah, Mira put that in there, and we were just like, "That's brilliant. We have to keep it. It's perfect."
The scream that Courtney Taylor does at the end of that episode is like one of the best screams I've ever heard. It's just like it chills me every time.
And that episode, it's a great one because when we get Courtney Taylor talking to herself as KO and TKO, it's just it's the best. And that episode, they had a lot of real estate to mess with. So
yeah. In the last What a Cartoon when we did with TKO's house, that was like, it's amazing how Courtney can play both characters so well with essentially this doing the same voice.
It's great.
Well, and then after that, in those, I'm kind of going through episode by episode, but then after that, there's kind of a trio of episodes that feel like tying up loose ends, like for Chip Damage and bringing back Rippy Roo, and then like finally doing the kind of. What we'd find out later is like the stepchildren fight to Fink and KO. That was great.
Yeah. When it comes to the Chip Damage episode, again, one could say that is an episode that one could have thrown out.
We could have,
but we really like to not just we like to live in an ending status quo and really let the audience experience an ending status quo for a period of time, just to like be like, yes, it has changed, and here we are now, and life goes on. And so it could have been the last time we saw Elodie and all those people at the end of season 2. But it's like, let's actually spend some time here and see what it's actually like when Elodie takes over, what the actual repercussions of Chip Damage are. And so we just felt like it's like, we like to follow up on our stuff as much as possible.
And also it's nice to give every character that is like a substantial character an appearance in every season. So we, got to go back to Point and see all that stuff.
Well, and to see KO, that's a touching episode in final season kind of sense, because it's KO saying goodbye to like his childhood hero and realizing like, maybe meeting your heroes isn't always the best thing for you. Yeah, and then and the Rippy Roo one is a great it feels like it puts us on the path to the big reveal.
It does it in a lot of subtle ways, because it's like
that's why we kept that one.
It's
actually.
like weirdly in some ways a recap of all the stuff that happened on the sandwich night that wasn't addressed that much in season 2.
Because we knew we had a lot of work to do in big reveal to catch people up to speed. So we figured, the Rippy Roo episode can kind of help reinforce some of the things that we're gonna have to re-bring up later.
And that episode already existed. That was already an episode that was ready to go, and it wasn't changed at all from our original conception of how we wanted it to be. It was just like, it just fit really nicely. And again, it's a funny conversation. It's like, well, how much of the audience will care if we don't follow up with Rippy Roo? Like, what do we do? And it's like, and I think very justifiably we chose.
People
to
did
keep
care.
it in. And that episode's really fun.
No, the Fink battle episode too. I mean, well, I liked any stuff with the two dads situation of Venomous and Boxman. Those two are so great together. I love them. And then after that one was KO Trap, which I know I've heard you, Ian, on other podcasts say in interviews, like you love that There's No Place Like Springfield episode.
Yes,
of G.I. Joe.
What's the previous What a Cartoon?
That's one of my all-time favorite. It is my favorite G.I. Joe episode.
Oh,
It's so disturbing and so weird. And that's another one of those things that I had been talking about in the writer's room for like 3 years up to that point of like, I want to do, a disturbing like mindfuck episode. And that actually ended up being like animation-wise, like my favorite episode of the series.
I mean, the animation was amazing.
Yeah.
Like we were just like completely blown away by how good the animation turned out. And that episode, it accomplishes a lot of things. But the primary motivation for why we did that episode was the thought of like, hey, we're going to reveal who KO's dad is very soon. But KO by this point doesn't necessarily have a strong, specific opinion about that character. Like he has an opinion, but it's not
he knows Venomous is like a bad guy, but up until that point, they had never had like a direct confrontation.
Yeah.
So we needed that for sure.
Yeah, and it's also a thing of like we have a lot of fun with all the different shades of that character. No pun intended. But it's important to have a reminder that it's like, hey, there's a reason why this person is such a big deal villain. Like he's a real villain, and when it comes down to it, he can be a funny guy who's making toilet jokes with Fink in the same episode as doing some incredibly disturbing villainy.
Yeah, well, to go back to season 2, the one where Boxman moves in with him, like that's basically like a Ren and Stimpy episode for some parts of it.
So much fun.
Yeah. So it's funny to see Venomous's like, his extreme range you can get with that character.
Yeah, for sure.
The freaking out of just the green glop just falling apart. And even at the end of it, like I think KO is still like, you are really rad and Enid, right? Like, his whole perception of reality is just shattered.
Yeah.
And that's definitely a thing where it's like it was a conversation. It was like, what is the actual worst thing that Venomous could possibly do to KO that we can do? And that's what we came up with.
Yeah, we're like, kill his friends in front of him.
Yeah.
We just have to find a appropriate way to do it. A TVY7 way to do that.
Yeah.
And then the next episode was the Sonic episode, Let's Meet Sonic.
Yeah.
And that, like, man, oh man, what a good episode.
Thank you
I
so
think,
much.
am I wrong? Did I see a Crusader of Senti reference in that episode, or was I reaching?
I think you might be reaching. Wait,
It's
which part?
it's the one with him in like the Chase Lounge. He's like sipping a drink because that's a cameo in another game where Sonic is in the same position, and I was like, did they go that far?
No, when
okay.
him in that lounge sipping the drink, that's from the Sonic anime.
Okay.
And it's actually the same. It's the same weird beach chair he has in that
Okay.
as well. Yeah, and which I'm also like, I can't believe Sega let us do that, because I know like in other things like the Archie comics, when they tried to reference like Sonic anime or things that the ownership might be a little weird, they were like, they would come down on them.
No Knuckles cowboy hat.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, we should have done that.
If we had showed Knuckles, we would have had him have that for sure.
But I mean, that was obviously a complete dream come true. We pitched the network on that in season 1.
Yeah. We've been working on it since season 1, which is why the episode, the way that the characters act is a little bit of a reset to like the first season.
That's true, yeah. Well, I mean, you keep it safe with Rad and Enid, just like they're asleep the whole episode. So.
And Sonic Boom, that was a Cartoon Network show, right?
It was, yeah.
So I'm sure that
Yeah.
helped.
Well, it's
Originally-
it's interesting because originally the conversation was, will this be the Boom version of
Okay.
Sonic? And basically it took so long that by the time this thing was in production, the Sonic Boom show was wrapping.
Yeah.
And so there was, the conversation became, we had meetings with Sega and they were so great.
Yeah.
And it was really just, we had an initial kickoff meeting during season 1. It was before the show even aired. And we showed them some clips of the show. And we just talked about how much we love Sonic. We showed these embarrassing photos of us covered in Sonic paraphernalia. And we just had these baseline conversations about, this is the type of show it is. This is what we want to do.
Yeah.
And then we had some brief conversations about the design. Like, we expressed our fondness for certain parts of the design. They basically said, like, if you do classic Sonic, he can't talk.
He can't talk, yeah.
And so
Okay.
if he's going to talk, it's got to be modern
Gotta be
Sonic.
modern. Yeah.
And
Izuka-san, the head of Sonic team, he was like in those meetings with us.
Wow.
And so he literally was like, yeah, this looks like it's modern Sonic and that should work. And it was really like surreal. to
Extremely.
have, the current head of Sonic team be like, I like these Sonic drawings you guys did.
Yeah, I mean, they were
like,
just like the nicest people in the world.
They were so
And,
nice.
so we had designs that we were sending back and forth with Sega starting, shooting, late season 1, early season 2, and all that was going fine.
Yeah.
And it was just a matter of getting the actual deal, between the companies through before we could actually produce the episode. And so finally in season 3, it came through and everything was ready to go. The only thing we tweaked from the old outline was that originally it was about KO becoming Sonic's sidekick. We'd already done a whole episode about that called Sidekick Scouts.
Oh, yes.
Where KO gets a sidekick, and so that was the tweak we did to make it so that it was actually properly in the timeline or whatever. That's the kind of pedantry that I always bring to the writers' room. And it was just so much fun, and they gave us so much support over everything we did. All of the just like nerdy stuff we were doing, and they had no limits to how wacky it would be. And when it comes to like the way we wrote the character, we just received nothing but support, and it was just so much. It was just insane amount of fun.
It was great, and we actually sent like the designs we did back and forth to them, and they had artists from Sonic Team actually work on the designs for. So it was like the artist was like the artist who created Amy Rose and Big the Cat.
That's great.
And he was doing like red lines on our drawings, and like he really liked them. It was really, really cool.
That's amazing. Yeah, I mean, the episode is so like you guys and your whole staff. It felt like we're all like serious Sonic heads who like love, and it was like this celebration of all parts of Sonic. Like, because and I've been guilty of this. Some Sonic fans are judgmental of it's rare that there's a Sonic fan who likes all things that Sonic has ever done.
But there's so much adventures of Sonic baked into that episode, especially musically.
Yeah. Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog is like one of my main like inspirations for animation in general. It's like a cheesy, kind of sloppily animated show, but it's like so charming, and it's like the weirdest confluence of ideas of like, well, we got this game character, what do? We kind of turn him into a weird Bugs Bunny style character. And I also love like Milton Knight's designs for like Robotnik and the Badniks and stuff. So doing a lot of references specifically to animated Sonic things was one of our goals, specifically. Because, I really enjoy when people who are in charge, who get to work with an IP, reference weird corners of that IP that usually don't get brought up. Like, we made a conscious effort not to say "gotta go fast" in the episode.
We tried to avoid. I mean, we did a couple of the well-known callbacks, but we tried to avoid some of the more, I guess you could say, overdone. Sonic jokes.
I like hearing way past cool in there. I like that.
And then when it comes to music, I mean, you had that idea that we would do in the Hall of the Mountain King, which was partly your fondness and love for Adventures of Sonic, and partly a very easy conversation to have, because when it comes to Sonic music, that's a whole other rights.
The rights are like insane. Like, I pitched it and I like hummed, the Sonic 1 tune, and they were like, oh, about that. Like, all of those songs, impossible to use.
Well, I'm sure if Cartoon Network had put up an incredible amount of money, we could have done it.
Maybe.
There were some good sound-alikes, though. You got the tone.
Well, Mint Potion, they're Sonic fans in their own right, and they have their own love of different parts of the Sonic universe. So they definitely brought that to it when they did the soundtrack.
Absolutely.
I mean, it sounds like you used All the Mountain King for similar reasons that like Deke did in the first place.
Exactly.
No, and I mean also getting Jim Cummings to do Boxman in a Adventures of Sonic Robotnik style, as opposed to the Sonic AM style that he did do. That was great to hear too.
It was really funny because we played him the clips of Long John Baldry as Robotnik, and we were like, do it like Robotnik, and then he was like, that's not me. And we're like, oh yeah, you didn't do this one, but we had him do like a couple things from Sat AM. He said rodent. And, the rodent one I caught there. And then even at the Chaos Emeralds, I thought you were this close to saying like, you mean the Chaos Emeralds? That was another thing. We were trying to consciously not do Sonic memes as well, because it almost feels like stealing someone's joke when you put a meme in something.
I can see that,
Yeah, so.
That makes sense. One of the characters who's a self-insert, I think, for Geneva, who worked on the show. They're holding a Sonic comic book.
It's Sonic Quest 2. We were like very specific about all those things, and our our character designer at the time, Ben Bates, actually used to be a cover illustrator for the Archie Sonic comic.
Wow.
So he knows how to draw those characters really well. So it all kind of came together.
That's awesome. Now I'm so sad the Archie verse is gone now, or not continuing at this time anyway.
Well, hey, give it like another 10 or 20 years. Some deal will get worked out. Some characters will come back. You never know.
Well, I guess my last question about the Sonic episode is, how late in the game did Sonic Says come into it? Or was that like
that was in the board pitch, I think. I don't know if that was in the outline or not.
It was in the board pitch.
And then I remember it was pitched, and we laughed very, very hard.
Yeah.
And I think it mostly is just exactly as Ryan had pitched it.
Yeah.
I think the only thing that we tweaked was that originally it wasn't a tie-up about Red and Enid and what they were doing in the story.
Yes, we looked at a bunch of Sonic Says, and we were like, oh, these are all tangentially related to something that happened in the episode. So we were like, we have to find the weird link between that. Because in Adventures of, it was always like so odd that they chose. Like, I remember there's one where it's like Sonic and Tails are caught in a trap where they're like falling around and they're like going in a circle. And then at the end, they're like, never climb in a dryer. And it's like, wait a minute.
There's also one about not calling 911 unless it's an emergency, but the emergency was Tails being chased by murderous robots.
I mean,
He had a valid reason to call 911.
that is an emergency.
Yeah.
It was. We had a lot of fun with that, I would say,
Yeah.
and then also like the lesson of like, don't sleep through your day. It's like just the kind of like just completely half-hearted lesson that would be in a
that hit the government standard. And, no, and I mean, in hearing Roger Craig Smith say like, and that's no good.
Roger Craig Smith it was so good. He did so many crazy things. Those voice actors are incredibly talented. They've been Sonic for so long now. It's like he can inhabit the characters and like how he is. Yeah, it was really great to work with him.
Yeah,
and
whenever we do I mentioned this before, but whenever we do a like guest character and we bring in a voice actor who's done the character for a really long time, they have we give them a lot of flexibility to, if they have an opinion about what the character would say or do, or if they want to fiddle with it a bit, they get to do that because they know the character. They have that relationship with the character.
Yeah, when it came time for Sonic to mock Ben Schwartz by saying he's the worst, he had like a lot of opinions on like, oh, how would Sonic say this?
Oh, okay.
It was just a lot of fun because like everybody got into it. Even our like special effects, After Effects editors were like studying Genesis games and trying to figure out how to do that blue fade that all Genesis games have, where they used palettes to shift everything to like a dark blue, then they shift that to black because they couldn't actually do like a fade. So we put that in the episode like several times.
Oh, it's so cool, man. Well, all right, we can talk about Sonic all day, but
let's keep going.
Sorry. Well, okay, so the big reveal with Venomous, I was surprised that was always how you guys wanted to do it, because when I saw it, I was like, oh, this feels like it's sped up to get you guys to there. So that's so funny.
Yeah, it is. It's like because there's a string of reveals that basically happen.
There's two major reveals in that.
Yeah, and then there are follow-up reveals in Let's Get Shadowy. And so when it came down to once we knew, actually no, it was before we knew the show was ending, because we were all this stuff was going to happen in season 3 anyway. It's just that we were hoping it would be a 40 episode season 3 instead of a 20, but all these events would have happened. In the season either way. And so we had already planned out the order of the reveals that we would have to do to make it the most funny and the most effective. That episode, there was a 22-minute version that we had drafted up, but this 11-minute version's better.
It ended up being a lot better, and it's a lot more compact. And
the reason for that is that there was a lot more just normal business of an episode and just stuff happening that wasn't actually necessarily serving the main gut punches of the episode and all the actual reveals. It was just really kind of buttressing the amount of time we were spending in the past with characters who weren't KO and yada, yada, yada. Just trying to make it feel like a normal OKKO episode. But we made the call to like, especially once creatively we were told, do what you need to do. We were like, we'll try it as an 11 and not include a bunch of stuff that...
There was just a bunch of like extra rigmarole, like, reasons why they're like having the battle, like what Boxman's plan was and all that stuff. We just like cut all that stuff because it was just a bunch of exposition anyway.
And it's better better.
It's better for it. Yeah.
And
Well, when it's called the big reveal, and then, if you see it in like previews of like, oh, this episode is called the big reveal, and then the very first thing is just KO asks, hey, who's my dad? And she's like, oh, it's Laser Blast. Like, what? Like, just to go like that. Like,
it's a perfect title card where it happens.
That was so, and I mean, was this a secret you guys wanted to hint at a lot? Because I mean, especially with like the voice actor was the same for all three characters.
It's so unbelievably hinted that we were like, oh, this is like a mystery for like really little, maybe a really little kid wouldn't see it coming, but like anyone who paid attention, it would be like, okay, this is very obvious.
Yeah. And the fun of it is that it was so obvious that the question wasn't like, are these characters connected? But there was an actual genuine mystery of like,
how are they connected?
We know it's very obvious, but like, what is it? Like, there are things that don't add up and don't quite make sense.
Yeah.
And so that became the kind of fun part to kind of unpack. Aside from the incredibly obvious parts that were, and much like all of these things, we milked it as much as we could.
Yeah, for sure.
It's even full of like references to other reveal things, including like, I mean, KO gets into the pose of Luke Skywalker learning about it.
Yeah.
The whole interaction is great. I also do love the like that you had time for Carol to also get like an emotional moment of realizing the father of her son isn't dead after all, and has been this villain the entire time.
Yeah, that was something that actually the storyboard artists on the show were all very, all felt really strongly about. Once we pitched the idea to everybody in a story meeting, everyone was like, how is Carol going to feel? And then we instantly made that like a large part of the arc of that episode, and be sure to end with like a KO and Carol moment and make sure that she gets her chance to like, throw a couple punches also.
I also like that from then on, I think there's at least one scene where Carol has to interact with Boxman, and it's just weird for her of like, oh, you're my ex's boyfriend now. Okay.
Yeah, we called that like the mini custody arc.
Yeah, we had this plan since the beginning of the series that we'd reach this point eventually.
We were hoping to spend like a whole season doing custody stuff.
And so and a lot of them wouldn't have been story driven. It would have just been like funny situations of what happens here. And so we had to focus on just the story driven ones. But we still got to spend a decent amount of time in that status quo where there's several episodes where we see the time is passing with this new way of life.
This weird arrangement.
But just the uncomfortable comedy of that is something we were really excited for. I think that the original title for Let's Get Shadowy was Shaded Custody. Which we changed because it was a little too obvious.
It's too obvious, yeah.
Well, I love even the mention of like weekends. Like you guys made it. I was just so interested to see like, oh, KO, he has two parents he's gonna go between now. Like,
and the most important thing for us was that KO would organically make the choice by himself to spend the time with Venomous, and that he has his own reasons to do that. And another thing we can get into this, we'll get into this I'm sure a lot later in different ways, but it's like KO never really expects Venomous to stop being a villain. He's matured enough at that point. He has an understanding that he may never, look up to Venomous the way he does someone like Gar, but he also is mature enough to understand that like I have things to learn about myself. He does it for himself, and that was something that we worked really hard to make sure was there. That this is a character who's making a strange choice, one could say, but also a mature choice.
Well, yeah, when TKO starts to come out and like that's some really great acting on Courtney too, and she's expressing like realizing both their parents aren't heroes, and that there's part of her that's a villain, or part of him that's a villain, and trying to understand that's when KO starts to come back. That's really good too.
We're definitely not saying anybody who has a bad dad situation that they should go live with their villain dad, but in a world where that's possible and you are literally turning into supervillains sometimes against your will, you might want to try it.
KO is definitely coming at it from a perspective of healthy boundaries. Like KO is like, he keeps his walls up the whole time. In a way, he gets a little bit closer, of course, but like he knows what he's getting into.
Well, I also like that KO kind of later becomes like spoiled by his dad. He's like almost like oh well, my dad lets me do this. Like all these things. Well, yeah, and so then after that, there's like Rad and Enid both get kind of important character wrap-up episodes. The Rad one, like you said, the Planet X one kind of was like the first part of it where I love him seeing that he's like, you know, a nerd and a jock. Like he understands that there's two sides of that in his home planet. So that's great.
And it's something we do a lot in the show, which is a character has kind of identity crisis and they land kind of somewhere in a nuanced position in the middle, learning that they don't have to be one thing or the other necessarily.
And also it's just fun because, you know, another thing we talked about in the writer's room a lot is how nerds and jocks are just the same thing now. They have never been more similar. It's exactly the same. It's like you're obsessing crazily over something, you know, whether it's fantasy football or fantasy, Final Fantasy.
It's always numbers based.
Yeah, exactly.
And in either case, you're staring at a screen all day.
Yeah.
And then the Rad, I love the Rad one where he's just dealing with the way he sees himself in how KO's acting, and he's like, uh-oh, like that. Yeah. That's really great. That was a great way to finally get him past the toxic masculinity that he had been showing the whole series.
Yeah, I mean, you see that Rad like doesn't really like himself when he's like that, and it's because he's trapped in this situation.
Yeah.
And it all started, you know, in that flashback in season 1 and Second First Date, where it's like he was put in this position and he had become that character and he had remained that character for years,
for the entire show.
His development had been stunted by all these pressure he was receiving to be a certain way.
Yeah.
And so again, it feels very small, but it's a huge deal for Rad that he's able to finally admit all of the stuff about himself.
Yeah, I also love how his old friends were just like, you just can't take criticism. Where you like their responses were pretty great.
Yeah, we were trying to get like every like reply dude kind of thing in there. We could. I think we squeezed almost everything we could get in there.
And and then came Red Action 3, which had the controversial moment of changing continuity in the show and going back in time.
Oh yeah. Hey, the show. There's only one timeline.
There's only one timeline.
So that had never happened before. But
we held steadfast to this. You proposed that there is only one timeline in the show.
Yeah, well, it's just what I believe in real life. There's only one timeline.
He was like, there's no divergent timelines. We're literally rewriting everything in the show up to that point.
And it's just the truth, because it's like in real life, if you start to think about like, oh, there's an alternate universe where this could happen. No, there's only what we have right now. Only one thing ever happened.
I love that. So that, you know, Red Action 3, the whole episode seems to be, or at least for me in the first viewing, it seems like Red is going to reveal that there's a love triangle and that he's still in love with Enid and he's jealous of her friendship with Red Action. But then when he goes like, I loathe her, like that he then remembers the thing that, you know, probably most viewers had forgotten, that Red Action with an old haircut had bullied bullied KO pretty harshly in an early episode. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun to like go back to that.
You came to my office one day with this idea very fully formed.
Yeah.
It's just the whole thing from beginning to end planned out of just like how this was going to play out. And I was like, you know, I was a little scared. But look, if you're a true, there are a lot of different types of OKKO fans out there. But the best OKKO fans, it's the best, are ones who recognize that the show is often at its most OKKO when it's really just a television shitpost.
Yes, yes, absolutely.
And those who can appreciate the show at its most shitpost are my favorite fans.
Yeah.
And this episode has some of that in it. For sure.
Absolutely. Yeah. And you know, I feel like kind of like setting up the idea that there could be this love triangle. It's like, I don't know. I wonder if it's like one of the first examples of straight baiting. So we're sorry we did that.
It's a little hostile, but the episode is also like once you know what it is. You can go back and watch it again and just laugh.
And just like laugh at it, yeah.
But seriously though, that episode did have like Enid and Red kiss at the end of it. And that was like, that was a very happy moment for me. I didn't know if you guys could, make the subtext text with those two characters and their relationship.
Well, we didn't either.
The reality of it is that Steven Universe changed everything. Mm-hmm. And,
I was curious if the wedding had made the change happen.
I think, it might end up being forgotten in years, but it's like we all owe a huge debt to that show in terms of just pushing through not just like representation, but just like the idea of just getting to be honest about a character and who these characters are and what they would do. That was huge. That was basically the only thing that changed in between the first Red Action episode and the third Red Action episode, is that, you know, the hammer had come down. Like, you can't say no to that stuff just for that reason anymore.
And, you know, it's not like it wasn't a challenge to make these things happen.
Of course.
For us.
It's still
just
hard.
That Steven did so much.
They did most of the work, yeah.
The fact that Steven is a PG show and we are a Y7 show, it can only hold water for so long as a reason to hold back on these things.
Yeah.
And so we were very happy that we were able to do it, and it's one of my favorite episodes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, now Craig of the Creek just had a same-sex kiss on it too. I feel like now I'm just going to be yawning after a while. I guess.
Another one.
I can't wait for people to be able to take this kind of thing for granted.
Yeah.
More so.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, and then it's just a straight road to the finale. Then after that, like TKO burst out. He in the episode Carl, which that's like such a great name for the episode where everything goes wrong.
Yeah.
and then right after that, Dendy's video channel, which is just you think from the title too, you're like, oh, this will be a fun, silly one. It's a sequel to KO's video channel. That's great.
And the most important thing about Dendy's video channel is that we wanted to make sure, you know, the stakes wouldn't really feel that high if we didn't have time passing and there being major long-term ramifications of KO permanently turning to TKO. And so it couldn't just be that he turns permanently and then we have the finale. There needed to be actual time passing and the characters actually experiencing what really happened for a while.
Yeah, and a whole episode without KO in it at all. That makes it feel better when you finally see him again in the next episode.
We ended up realizing that KO was absent, and then we worked to try and make sure, oh yeah, you're not going to see KO for a while. And even in the next two episodes, you don't actually get to see KO in corporeal space until like the very, very end. Yeah.
Well, yeah. So let's talk about then. Let's Fight to the End. The double length.
Sure.
So I mean that one, you guys really want to do a tournament arc, and I love tournament arcs and stuff. So that was so great to see.
I mean, look, a tournament arc was going to be if we did a movie.
Yes,
that was what we really wanted to do. We wanted to do, you know, the Mortal Kombat movie.
Yes.
Match with the Flying Guillotine.
Yeah.
And we would have done we probably would have done a thing where it felt a little bit different. You know, it's how anime movies feel a little bit different. The continuity is even maybe a little different. But
we're strong proponents of like, oh, if you have a great idea, you should just do it as soon as you have it. We didn't want to get into a jungle movie scenario where, you know, 10 years from now, we're releasing OKKO tournament movie on like, you know, whatever streaming services exist then.
Yeah. And we knew already, you know, what the basic moves of the finale would be. And then you made the call to kind of be like, this will make the most sense if we put it in a plaza event where all the heroes are in one place. To be present for this monumental thing that occurs.
And, you know, it's just there's a lot of fan service within the episode. If you followed the show at all, you know, like those last episodes, Dendy's video channel, Let's Fight to the End, and Thank You for Watching the Show are all like kind of celebrations of the whole series and every kind of tone that the series has ever had. So many of the characters all coming back, you know, all that stuff. So a tournament is the obvious way to do that. Yeah.
The only character who dies is the PAL card company.
Oh yeah, he died. He died off screen. Yeah, don't worry about him. It's okay.
It's fine. But the whole fight, like all the combat animation is so fun. Like seeing TKO do wrestling moves, like the ear cup and the you can't see me.
The board artists had a lot of fun with that. And then I mean, with all these finale episodes, it was a matter of just like, well, we know this is all we have, so we're going to call in every single favor.
Yeah. And we brought back a lot of animators who would work with throughout the series and had them do sequences. It was just great.
Yeah, the turbo fight was done by the Teenid and Trad turbo fight.
That was Takafumi Hori.
That's what I thought. Yeah.
He luckily had like a little space in his schedule, and we were like, hey, we have this part we want you to do. But then also some of our OKKO superstars who had actually moved on to their own projects. Jeremy Polgar and Max Collins came back to animate parts of the tournament fights as well.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, so, you know, it was a real team effort. Everybody ended up giving a little bit to it.
Yeah, it was all very all hands on deck. And I mean, that was like, you know, there's a lot of things to say about the situation we were in, but, you know, I really love, in a way, the way that the crew rose to the occasion. You know, once we knew what was going on, everybody rallied and just worked so hard and put so much love into the entire final season, because we knew that it was all the time we had. And it's hard to say what could have happened otherwise, but in a lot of ways I wouldn't trade it for anything.
Yeah, I feel really proud of how it came out.
The final battles in it, like, and then it ending with, you know, all these characters, like in both these, the Let's Fight to the End and Thank You for Watching the Show. That has to be the biggest cast list you guys ever had on an episode.
It was insane to record.
It was borderline, like, I mean, it was excessive.
Yeah.
But that's just the way we decided to roll. And we did do it. And there are a few episodes in the season that have very small cast lists. So that helps. But yeah, I mean, honestly, I forget if it was Thank You for Watching the Show or Let's Fight to the End, but one of them had like a 25-person long cast list.
And it was just like a revolving door of people coming in and out the studio, recording their lines, saying hi to everybody. You know, we had like cake and stuff at the end. It was really great. Yeah.
Was there like some wish fulfillment stuff in there too, of like Potato finally showing off her like super suit and getting into combat?
It was all very just thoughtful choices made by the crew, because it's like, by that point, we had an idea of which characters we'd be dedicating time to. You know, we already knew who got episodes in the season. Yeah. And then we also had some ideas. We'd already had our meetings about who we were going to give focus in the final episode. And so it's like, look, the whole season's everybody's getting their ending moments. And so Potato's a perfect example. I think just Danny Ducker came up with that whole thing.
Yeah, we were kind of just like thought about like, oh, what would be fun to see? What are like the lesser known characters who we can't really devote a whole segment to? And yeah, the Borders made some really good choices there.
Dogmun getting to show off his secret power. Though still a secret by the end of it. But the final battle, that it ends with a sweet song from Carol to KO. Like, where'd that come in?
Oh yeah, we got a brand new song from Jeff Liu for that.
Awesome.
We had toyed with the idea of licensing. That's like something we never do in the series. We didn't license any songs, and we had toyed with the idea of licensing a song for her to sing. But Jeff stepped up. He was our storyboard supervisor, and also he was a storyboarder for Steven Universe. He wrote tons of songs there. He stepped up and wanted to write a brand new song for Kate to sing, and she did an awesome job.
Yeah, and he was very thoughtful about making the content of it, you know, have it reasonably be a tape that KO could have had as a child that he was listening to, but also thematically tied to things from the entire series, all the way back to season 1 conversations that Carol was having with KO.
And it's so sweet, the moment where first the great joke where he pops up like, hopefully nothing bad has happened in the last minute while I was doing that.
When Crinkly Wrinkly dies.
It's brutal.
A brutal death.
Yes. Well, can Crinkly Wrinkly truly die? The resolution of KO truly accepting TKO as part of him, and even his like transformation into how he looks for the rest of the series. That was great. Like,
I mean, that was the only way it could have gone, is that like eagle-eyed viewers were picking up on it from the very beginning, the kind of the way that everything that KO was doing with TKO, you know, treating him a certain way and was making it worse over the course of the whole series.
The whole series,
he was learning the wrong lessons and causing more problems, and it got worse and worse until the world ended.
That was that was always a tough thing for us to do, because in every TKO episode we had to make the episode feel like a fulfilling episode. But make sure that KO did the wrong thing at the end of the episode by either keeping TKO inside him or pacifying him in some way. Even in TKO's house, it has like a nice ending, but it does end with KO sort of like finding another way to pacify his angry side inside of his own head instead of dealing with his problems. So that was something that we had been sort of setting up over and over and over throughout the series. Like, he's always going to do the wrong thing with TKO at the end of the day. And so finally getting to resolve that was really fun.
What's the deal with the president of the universe? Like, what's his, where's he come from?
Well, he comes from a TV series called Secret Mountain Fort Awesome, created by Pete Brownguard.
Pete Brownguard, yeah. He was a character who, so I worked on that series, and it was a hard series to work on because it was about 5 unlovable monsters, which meant you had to write, instead of writing runs of 3 jokes, you had to write runs of 5 jokes over and over. And writing runs of 5 jokes is always like, you have to write a funny one, then a less funny one, then a sort of funnier one, then a less funnier one, then a really funny one. It's like it was hard to work on. But the side characters in that show were really fun, and one of them was this character called the President of the Universe, who I did a whole episode about, but the show got canceled before that episode got made.
No.
So he ended up being a canon immigrant to the show. The other character, like that Ginger, one of Carol's classmates, is also similarly was made for an episode that never got made.
Yeah, and that's the thing. See, we can moan all we want about the treatment of KO, and I will all day. But the fact is, like, Secret Mountain is an example of a show, and there are a lot of shows like this where they get told it's over, and then all of their in production stuff just gets thrown away.
Yeah,
and so there are tons of episodes of Secret Mountain that were written, boarded, and not animated, and never finished.
Because they had the first episodes were a little bumpy, but it really found its voice by the end of it, but then it got cut off. So I rescued those characters and reused them, and it was I think it's in the second episode of the show. We messed up.
I think it's like the
fourth episode of the show. We messed up. We see Gar's secret office, and one of the photos is, wow, Mr. Gar is with the President of the Universe, and then we threw him in there, and we eventually started seeding that in. Yeah,
correct. And then in Gar Quest, we learn about how the president had gifted Gar this like plot of land that he was responsible for. That was where the plaza is.
Yeah,
and that he would show up in this way in the final episode. It's one of those tricks you can only play once.
Yes,
it's like saying it was all a dream. You can only really do it once.
Yeah, we were like, let's pull the ultimate Deus Ex Machina.
I mean, Dragon Ball Z did that like 5 times.
Yeah,
people love that.
And it's like a Disney thing. You get your one wish. It's like it's very fairy tale.
Yeah.
And it's something, again, if there was ever a time to do it, this was the time to do it. The KO gets to be christened with special, as the main character.
And essentially one of the things that we knew, like, I don't know, we didn't care about too much, but we were like, oh shoot, we have to have lore explanations for all the things in the show, like what are glorbs? And so we're basically like, oh, it's Toon Force, essentially.
Yeah, and I want to, speaking of glorbs, it's, this is a detail that is very hard to hash out in the show that I just want to note, which is that fun comes from glorbs, but glorbs are used for bad in the Point Prep episodes.
Yes,
that's because those glorbs have been augmented.
Yes,
they are not just fresh glorbs from the.
You see him put the glorb inside him, augment it, and then shoot it to the other guys. We never explain that, but
it's a visual thing that if you're paying very close attention to, it's like I'm paving that ground now.
It's important glore.
They're basically just Toon Force that can be used for whatever possible thing.
And then Let's Fight to the End ends with I thought that the Cartoon Network had told me the wrong information. I was like, oh, that's the end of it. There's not another episode after it, because it takes him back to his fight with Daryl, which is how the show started. And but now you see how much he's grown, and then the end comes up on screen. I was like, well, I guess it's over.
You tore your TV off the wall and threw it away.
I mean, this is something that I am obsessed with, and I love to do, and I love whenever a piece of media does it, which is to give you a complete ending, and then use some additional space afterward to give you something else.
Yeah.
And so we very intentionally, this was all from the beginning. It was a very difficult conversation to have with the network, where it's like, there's a big 22, and then there's something else after that.
Yeah.
Which
they didn't really like that.
Not the easiest thing to program, but it was really important to us, and we had these conversations from the very beginning that there would be the big ending that ends the whole story, and then we want to do something else after.
Yeah.
And so we wanted it to feel very complete, and it does at the end of that episode.
Mm-hmm. But we had a lot of fun with that, and the Dezeki at the end of that episode, that's the term for Osamu Dezeki, who created the
the still frame that then turns into a painting.
Very Tomorrow's Joe kind of. But that was painted by hand. We had a lot of fun doing all that stuff. Yeah, and it was good to kind of get to quote unquote end the series. But it is kind of like the end if you're like the person who only cares about lore and plot, which I don't know why you're watching OKKO, but
and like I'm trying to think of other shows that do this specific thing that I'm talking about, and the only one that comes to mind is the original Boogie Pop Phantom anime.
oh yeah,
Like that
Yeah,
show
does
has a big story finale and then an episode afterward that's like this like differently toned epilogue, and I just remember thinking that was so cool. And so
It reminds me of in my teen years reading the Neil Gaiman Sandman series, and like that has like issue 72, which like literally closes the door on all the major characters. A funeral happens, it's all over, and then there's 3 more issues that are like just a different tone and just more like close loose ends more thematically than like literally with characters. Yeah.
Oh, and another example is season 3 of Twin Peaks kind of has that, where the second to last episode is the big story finale, and then there's something else afterward that
you get another
gives you different types of feelings that you didn't expect.
And well, okay, before we get into the true final episode in the second half, so show's been over a couple months now, and so I mean, what's next for you guys, Ian and Toby?
Well, after the show ended, I took like 2 months off. I basically just sat in a dark room and played Dragon Quest XI.
Oh, that's the greatest! Oh my god,
it was incredible.
choice.
That's the kind of thing that I had been denying myself for all the years that I was doing the show. I got all my characters to level 99.
Oh, good.
Saw the credits roll twice. I was like very, very into it. But now I'm back. I'm doing something. I don't know. We'll see.
And then very similarly, I took a break after the show ended and tried my best to learn how to relax for the first time in 5 years. With kind of intermittent results. And then right now I'm back at Cartoon Network. I pitched them a new project a while ago, and I'm working on early development of that. Nothing in production or anything anywhere near there yet. And fingers crossed, hoping to make something cool if all goes well.
Yeah.
And do you think you guys learned a lot from running your first show on your own?
For sure.
I learned a whole lot.
Just to, not to think too highly of ourselves, but one of the things I always kind of thought about KO was like, we have a great admiration for like Genndy Tartakovsky, and we saw Dexter as sort of like, oh, this is like a playground where he figured out a lot of the techniques that he was eventually able to mature and use in different ways and do like different tones and different things. But you really see a lot of those roots in like this first project that was simple and had a lot of latitude and a lot of like interesting designs and stuff. So we always kind of thought of KO as this like playground where not only us, but also a lot of the people who we worked with got to test out a lot of philosophies and styles and things. And it has worked out because several of the people who worked on KO eventually went on to work on their own projects and their own shows. Several of them have pilots. A lot of them have made series.
The Mau Mau creator.
Yes.
He worked on the show.
Mau, Victor and Valentino, and then hopefully some other ones we can talk about soon.
Ooh, boy. Man. Well,
so that's
awesome.
That's for us. It's it's been a lot of fun, and we always look back on KO and like it's like we could look back and take like a small slice of it and turn just that feeling into a whole show for ourselves. So Steven Universe Future just came out at the time of this recording, and you do a voice in that, and that's true.
Do you think you're gonna do more voices in shows that aren't yours?
I did a voice in that. I've done like some other voice acting, like in little things. It was kind of a surprising career for me. It'll be cool to like try and do more of that.
I loved your line, like, I don't know about this. That was really good. But okay, why don't we take a break? And when we come back, we will talk about the final episode of OKKO. Thank you for watching the show.
Great.
Announcing the first ever I just can't wait to see who will be #1! Sign us up!
The fate of the plaza is at stake, but KO's turbo form TKO is taking control. Can our heroes defeat their strongest foes yet?
Come on, Rad, let's do this! Rad! Enid! I'm coming! Everyone's counting on me.
Find out on the OKKO Let's Be Heroes 1 hour special event in 2 weeks. Or watch it now on the Cartoon Network app.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to The Break. It's Henry Gilbert with my power level of 10 on the My Pal card.
Hey, everybody, it's Bob Mackey, and I would say let's start the show, but it happened like an hour ago, so I'm sorry about that.
Man, quite a show we have this week. We are so happy that we were able to get Ian and Toby back on the show after the end of their series, and we flew down to Burbank. In at least 50% of the reason why was because to talk with them about OKKO before the end of the year.
I dare say we have the most definitive take on OKKO on the entire internet.
We need to be sourced on every page of the wikis of OKKO.
I need timestamps.
And so, yes, it was so great to see Ian and Toby. I really appreciate them giving us their time, and everybody watch OKKO. You know, they could always come back, and follow them on Twitter. But this podcast, we're only able to go on trips to Burbank to chat with guys like Ian and Toby thanks to the support of our subscribers to the Talking Simpson Network at patreon.com/Talking Simpsons.
That is right. If you go to patreon.com/Talking Simpsons and sign up at the $5 level, you get so much stuff, including advance access to podcasts 1 week in advance, both Talking Simpsons and What a Cartoon. You also have access to everything behind the $5 paywall. That's over 100 bonus podcasts, including all of our limited miniseries, and that includes Talking Futurama, Talk King of the Hill, Talking Critic, and the newly wrapped up Talking Futurama Season 2 Part 1. 10 new episodes of Talking Futurama. We also have interviews, end of season wrap-ups, deleted scene specials, community podcasts, and so much more. So many podcasts that you have never heard if you're not a patron. And Henry will tell you out there what is happening at the $10 level, extra long podcast every month for patrons.
That's right. If you enjoy the What a Cartoon podcast, but which we talked about feature films for twice as long, then you need to sign up at the $10 level to hear the What a Cartoon movie podcast. Once a month, me and Bob talk about a different animated feature film. In December of 2019, we closed out the decade with Iron Giant for that film's 20th anniversary. We talk about Brad Bird's career, the troubled release of the film, and we talk about its long legacy. Plus, chat about the film scene by scene, moment by moment, for longer, I'd say more than twice as long as the film is. You want to hear all of that, and you only can if you're a $10 and up subscriber, and you get to hear the whole backlog once you sign up. That means movies like Batman Mask of the Phantasm, Kiki's Delivery Service, Akira, a Goofy movie, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, Aladdin, Tiny Toons, How I Spent My Vacation, Rocko's Modern Life, Static Cling, Cowboy Bebop the movie, Nightmare Before Christmas, Toy Story, and so many more to come in the future. So please, you'll want to sign up at $10 a month at patreon.com/Talking Simpsons.
And if you sign up and have never used Patreon before, it's so easy to use. When you sign up for Patreon, you get a nice little code. You have access to it at all times. You drop that into whatever you use to listen to podcasts. It will let you download our bonus podcast alongside your regular free podcast. And there's also a very nice Patreon app that you can use to listen to our bonus content. Either way, it is so easy to listen to all of the podcasts that you haven't heard if you're not a patron at patreon.com/Talking Simpsons.
And now, why don't we get ready to say goodbye to the wonderful series OKKO, Let's Be Heroes.
Who's got a clue where I'm going, where I've been? I can't stop with you, 'cause where you're going is where I win.
Okay, we are back for the finale of OKKO. Thank you for watching the show. And so before we go through each moment of it, this has, I think, 9 storyboarders credited on it? The two main ones. So I guess, how did you guys decide you wanted to do a finale like a last episode like this one?
There's a lot to it, and a lot of the episode has to do with us and the way we were feeling and what we wanted to do. But to go back to the kind of the germ of the idea, it was right when we kind of got the bad news. And we were still deciding what to do with the episodes that we had and how we wanted to spend the time. And it was kind of just like a shower idea that I had that was based on just the emotions that I was going through.
Yeah.
Because I was thinking about the experiences I had at Comic-Con 2017. And we all went to Comic-Con. That was when OKKO was the featured Cartoon Network thing.
Oh, yeah. It had its
Comic-Con.
own room and stuff.
Had a booth and everything.
It was the whole to-do. And I was just thinking back to that and feeling very melancholy about the fact that I took it all for granted. I was thinking about how I went to that Comic-Con and we went through that experience. We had the panel and all of this hullabaloo. And the whole time I was there, it was just this is the beginning, And I didn't realize that it was not just the beginning, but it was also the end in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And it was the last time any of that was ever going to happen about the show. And just realizing, and when I was there, I was just treating it like another day because I'd been to Comic-Con for a regular show. And it was it's just part of the cycle of what happens with these cartoons. And I remember going to my hotel early because I was tired and just I've had enough today. I'm only going to see the KO thing once and only spending a few minutes there and just not really being there, not really being present for those moments and really understanding how significant they were and how they were only going to happen how it was really only happening in that one moment and how important that was and how I really didn't appreciate it. And so I was feeling that emotion and just realizing how much of something that I thought was really going to keep going was now truly in the rear view, and just thinking about a way to express that in an episode of television. And at the time, it was before we had decided to tell the whole story necessarily.
Yeah.
So when I came in with the initial pitch, it was actually the big reveal would happen, and then all of the flash forwards would be the whole storyline.
Yeah,
just happening. Wow. The whole storyline would happen so fast that you couldn't even experience it, and that would have been an incredibly hostile thing to do to the audience.
Yeah,
and so you very rightfully, that was right when we were making the call to let's tell the whole story first and then do this. And
I think we held on to the idea, but we shelved it for a while. And then once we were doing the business of cutting all the episodes, I think I feel like I was we can still do this.
Right. There was a version where we do more episodes and not do Thank You for Watching the Show. Because we were if we tell the whole story, then what do we do with this
We
episode?
won't need to do it.
And it's very OKKO that we decided to have our cake and eat it too with this. And really tell the whole story. And we were very forthright with the network about it. We were this final episode is going to be something different. It's going to be quieter. It's going to be more abstract. It's a kind of a whole different type of thing. And we certainly got some questions about it as far as just the fact that it's not necessarily satisfying in a conventional way.
Not at all.
All of its aims are extremely different from what a normal episode of the show is. And in a lot of ways, it was just a confessional of just us speaking openly about the way we felt.
It's maybe the sort of most open we've ever been directly with the audience, because before, when we're talking about different aspects or social things, usually, we couch that in a layer of irony or talk through the characters or do something like that. But this episode is literally about the show, and it's literally about what we want to tell the audience about our experience making the show, and hopefully some of their experience of watching the show. So
and then the thing is that it does connect with all those feelings of growing up, and so it was able to layer onto KO very naturally.
Yeah,
because we're not specifically just talking about, oh, I'm so sad that the show got canceled, because whether the show got canceled then or canceled later, it was going to have to end.
Of course.
And no matter what happened, time would move forward, and every day I wouldn't come in and see the same people anymore.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And all this thing that we built, no matter what, was going to have to get taken away piece by piece. And that's what had happened.
And we realized that kind of feeling that we were starting to have about, I'm going to miss all these people who I work with, because any show or any production is like lightning striking. You're only going to get that certain group of people that one time. We realized that, that's going to be kind of similar to a feeling that an audience member has on their last episode of watching a show. Like, you're realizing, like, oh, I'm never going to get to see this particular mix of characters and episodes and stories ever again.
Yeah.
So they really kind of dovetailed together nicely.
Right. And, you know, saying goodbye is very painful. And, like, we were realizing that as the people who were going to have to be here through the entire year-long production of the show, that we were about to be saying goodbye to the show for a full year.
Yeah.
And so all of that stuff was built in. And then when it comes to, you know, you mentioned that all the board artists worked on the show, on the episode. And that was another example of us being like, this is our last chance. Let's do something special.
Yeah.
And so we just asked, you know, can we please keep each and every board artist on for another couple of weeks and give them the time to just do their last thing and do what they want to do for their last boarding of the show in that sequence.
And we kind of planned the outline of the show around this. So we sort of created little holes where individual sequences could be slotted in. So
Yeah.
it's actually like when you look at what border did what, it's pretty much straight through for the first 2 acts. It's Mira and Kat with like a couple holes here and there. But then we made sure to leave like a lot of real estate so everybody could jump in. And it was literally everybody.
It was. And some of it was stuff that was in the outline and the original idea for the episode. Some of it was stuff that we had like a meeting where we met with everyone and we made a list of all the stuff we wanted to see. So some of it came from that, people pitching in the room about who we want to see, what situation they'd be in, where we'd find them in their life. And then some of it, you know, given a couple weeks to spend on this episode, the board artists just coming up with stuff and just it was so interesting.
It's very organic,
Yeah, it was so interesting because it was right when we were starting to say goodbye. You know, everyone, you know, every week we'd be losing 2 more board artists, and on that day we'd have a very sad, tearful goodbye with these board artists, and then they would hand in their storyboard file,
final scene,
and we'd see what they decided to put together. And some of it would be stuff we had a conversation about, and some of it would be a complete surprise.
Yeah, they would want to like surprise us with something. A lot of them. And it was a way to make sure that everybody's final experience with the show was something that they purely wanted to do. There's nothing that excites me more in a piece of media when you see somebody who is truly fulfilling their dream or getting to do the thing that they really want to do. There's nothing more fun than seeing a director do their thing that they love. Or, you know, even like playing a video game, like seeing like, oh, this series has a penchant for this thing. And I love seeing that there. And I feel that way about like every artist who I get to work with. Like, I really want to see you do your thing unfiltered and put it on screen. So this is kind of like a contrived way of getting that from everybody.
Yeah, and like if I'm just very, very, very happy that we got to do this specific episode because I feel like I'm proud of it in a way that's unique to anything else I've had a chance to work on. And that's because of how direct and raw it is about every single thing that all of us were feeling. Yeah. And I feel like it's something that I don't know. I'm very proud.
When we get to the ones you guys boarded, let me shout them out. But this episode begins with what should be a telltale sign for OKKO viewers as something bad's going to happen because KO's like, I don't want anything to change, and he's just happily mopping. Like I believe that's how the lead up to the season 2 finale began too, right? Yeah. But yes, let's play our first clip from the episode here.
Another perfect day for mopping the floor. I hope things stay like this forever.
Great job out there, Rad. Your finger blasters are getting so much stronger.
And so are your power kicks. Even my ladies were jealous. Next time, leave some action for us. Yeah, you old glory hog.
Wait, did you guys just go on a mission?
Yeah, the Cactus crew hijacked a tapioca truck. We took them down super easy.
Oh, I wish I could have been there with you.
Don't worry, we'll be together next time.
Nothing can separate the 3 of us. Don't you mean the 5 of us?
Life had been great for me so far.
Great, yeah.
And that's immediately establishing what's about to happen, which is that he's experiencing a rare case where the problem of the episode is not a literal physical thing that is being inflicted upon him, but just what's happening to him emotionally as a person who's growing up.
It's true. And even in doing that, we got to work in a bunch of throwbacks. Like that music track was ripped directly from the first episode, and Rad talking to his muscles. That was a joke that Danny Ducker came up with.
I think it was a Stevie joke.
Oh, it was a Stevie joke, right?
Yeah,
and
yeah.
then Parker added that the muscles could actually talk later. Like they actually have their own mouth charts and lip sync and everything.
Yeah.
But
I loved hearing your muscle voice come back for them too. Yeah, and that they count themselves as two separate individuals, up to 5.
yeah, they're real people.
We worked very hard in the mix to make sure that when the laughing happens, that there are like extra laughs
Yes.
that are coming out of the muscles.
I also like that part of KO's growing up there is that he's like, oh, my friends did stuff without me. Yeah, that sucks. Like, the KO seems to think everything's okay after that. Or that he'll get to be on the next one. Like, also the seeing the Cactus Crew in a tapioca truck. That sounds like a fun adventure.
No, it would have been a nice one.
But yes, KO thinks everything's okay, but then things keep going wrong.
But things were about to change.
That was the most amazing mission.
What?
It was incredible!
Unbelievable! You guys! How did I miss out again?
Kale, what are you talking about? You were there the whole time.
Yeah, you got a trophy for your bravery.
What?
And you broke your leg.
My leg? Why is it all better now?
Come on, KO. Let's kick some box butt.
Make sure you remember this time.
Get ready to meet your doom, Lakewood Plaza! Not so fast, Daryl and Shannon! I mean, Raven and Michaela.
Well, Doy, who else would it be? Yours truly and...
Ernesto!
Something weird had happened, and I needed to figure out what it was. Something is distorting our reality. It must be that Ernesto!
I have no idea what you're saying, but okay.
So many great sound effects in there too. But the like his whip crack realization that his leg is broken with a broken leg sound. Yeah,
Toby, you drew that joke.
Yeah, that was one of the parts that I did boards on was the added gags of the trophy in the leg, just to
those are really fun.
Make some extra hay out of explaining what's going on.
Yeah,
through the whole series, you made sure to have the episode numbers below the names of the episodes.
That's true. It finally pays off in this episode.
Oh yeah. So there was a production issue with, well, not an issue, just like there was a unique challenge that we had where it's like the idea that a title would pop up each time that we skip forward in time came a little bit later.
How many are there? There's
like 60 something.
67,
and so
something like that.
Part of it was like, I remember when I pitched the idea, I was like, look, I'll do all of them because I was like, I'm not going to burden our production team with doing all this extra stuff.
You really felt bad about foisting all that extra work on
and
everybody.
originally they were going to be like subliminal because we weren't sure if it was too far, but we did it. And the fact is, I didn't even end up doing that many of them. Actually, that's true. Geneva did the majority.
It became a group effort.
Yeah.
The two of us, Geneva Hodgson, and then I think some of the design team did a few.
Yeah, they had time to help us out with a few of them.
Yeah.
And it was a massive undertaking that we just did slowly over the entire 9 months that we were finishing the show.
We just like, we finished something, we didn't have anything to do for an hour. It's like, all right, I'll polish off a title card or two. We'll try our best.
There's for some reason there's no spot in the pipeline for doing 60 something more title cards than you normally do.
and by the end of the episode, you're up to 1,000. You get up to 1,000 episode.
Dream a dream.
Yeah, we made a whole spreadsheet and we're like trying to make sure that that the numbers all stacked up eventually. And then we made our own production code, our fake production code, with X's.
This is like the villain section of the episode now, and it's you start with Daryl and
Shannon.
Yeah, Daryl and Shannon. The guys you normally see, and then
absolutely.
Then next level is Raven, and then Ernesto, who basically I love. There was a previous episode where they fight Ernesto, like, oh, we don't see him a lot.
Yeah.
But they're all wearing their cowboy hats because they like that. Was the state change at the end of the last episode?
They all got cowboy hats.
They all were promoted, and they all received a much more loving family situation, represented by the cowboy hats.
They're also supportive, like that. Like now Boxman recognizes the cowboy identity, and that's very nice of him. And even Jethro is now Death Row.
Yes, that was really fun to bring back, and he has now he has arms and legs, and he has 2 pairs of arms. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not sure if that's like a new Jethro robot that was made while the one from I Am Jethro continues to be happy. Who's to say?
Who knows?
Yeah.
And also I like the consistent writing in the episode that KO is experiencing this as a normal episode, but every other character is like, this is just 5 seconds in an episode they're in.
Yeah, KO definitely is. For the first half of the episode, he's trying as best as he can to experience it as though it were a regular OKKO episode, as best he can.
And that, again, to go back to what we were saying at the beginning, is the true feeling that me and Toby had working on the show. Because when you're working on a TV show like this, you're seeing bits and pieces of every single show out of order all the time. People are working on different parts, and it's all over the place. And you really want to stop and lavish your attention on one thing or another, but you can't. There's a lot of regret there in thinking about we should have, spent time and blown this whole thing out and done all this stuff and really babied this part or that part. But, we don't have time to slow down.
Even the way Rad reacts, he's still at least supportive. He's like, I don't know what you're talking about, but okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. And as things speed up, then too, out of nowhere, the wizard returns.
Oh yeah, Wally the White.
And I believe he's in the next clip here, because I could not have a clip of Wallace Shawn in this podcast here.
Good choice.
Wally the White? Now it all makes sense. You're using wizard magic to make time jump forward, aren't you?
What? I'm just here to get my robe hemmed.
Huh?
I keep tripping on my robe. My legs are very short.
It's always a treat to hear him.
Yeah, it's great. We're really glad we could have got him back. Wallace,
Money well spent.
Yeah, he was always 100% down for everything.
He is a consummate professional.
Yes.
He takes his work quite seriously, and yeah, it was
I think we even
a lot
did,
of fun.
I think we even did alt jokes for that. We did a bunch of ones
There were
because
a few.
we weren't sure how long it was going to be. We ended up using, I think, the longest joke because it was just his delivery was perfect.
And I think as far as title cards go, my favorite joke is Wizard Mayhem.
Yeah.
That's and you wonder how those wizards, if it covers up their feet and you can't see them, how do they not step on their ropes all the time? But at least Wally the White, he got punched in the face by KO, but he's still okay. He didn't curse him or anything.
At the end of the day, Wally ended up just being more of a nuisance than a villain.
And yes, then in the next scene, we get a big return. Venomous and Fink had been left in the last episode with their own planet to destroy, which even let them live their best life, which is to destroy things but not hurt other people while doing it. Did you want to take Venomous and Fink to a different place than where you left him at the end of the previous episode? Or
no, that was always the plan of what we were going to do with the two of them. It's just that, in terms of the story that ended with the previous episode, it's just that this episode, being as it is a celebration of the whole series and all the bad guys that KO fought, it would feel really weird if we left out Venomous and Fink. That was our main reason for wanting to include them.
Yeah, and it's funny because KO responds like it's nothing when they show up.
Yeah.
And it's because for him, I think he's matured a lot already, and he's kind of moved on, and he's not trying to get anything from Venomous anymore as far as a father figure, and so it's just it's this guy.
I think too, in Let's Fight to the End, really we see KO actually start to prioritize himself and his own happiness, and he's not dedicating his life to reconnecting with a dad who was probably pretty bad, who definitely abandoned him. And that's not, for us, it wasn't important to show, to talk about, KO needs to reconnect with this guy, because he really doesn't.
Well, in a lot of ways, Venomous doesn't really deserve that KO would do that.
Not at all. Not at all.
And at least in KO's perspective, I think, and it's not like he's simmering and I can't believe Venomous, but I think he's just kind of well, that didn't really work out.
Yeah.
I did what I could. The world ended, and now we're going to move on.
It's sort of the only good end that you can really have with that bad dad scenario, which is well, they're living their own life. It's not going to become like a thing that I constantly have to carry every day and worry about. Like, I don't care.
And it's weird to describe all the thought behind a scene that happens in like 2 seconds.
Yes.
And KO acts like none of this stuff is on it. Because in a lot of ways, it's not on his mind.
It's not on his mind.
Yeah.
No.
Well, now to get personal, the mom, stepdad, and dad stuff in this episode really got me. Like, especially I never really saw, Carol or Gar as too similar to my mom and stepdad in real life, but then at the end it was kind of the end, but I did start to identify them much more by the end of it, and it really got me like more emotionally than I expected to in the episode. Yeah, but yes, why don't we hear Venomous and Fink's return here?
Now that Fink and I have destroyed our planet, we're back to finish what we started on Earth.
And there's nothing you can do to stop us, you dumb babies! Okay, now I'm totally lost. But if I keep fighting, I'll reach the villain responsible for this.
Venomous still living his best life.
Yep.
Getting to be a villain.
Getting to be a villain, getting to be just a jerk. And that was a lot of fun. That music was in Rad's Alien Sickness, which was kind of our Ren and Stimpy gross out episode from season 2. Yeah. We established like a fun like Team Rocket intro for Venomous and Fink, and so the music is that plus a theremin because they came from outer space. And Fink says, "You dumb babies," because we were just like, well, we can't pass that up. I think like in maybe like her first or second appearance, we like also gave her an Angelica from Rugrats line as well. Like if you have to ask, you'll never know, I think.
That's right.
Yeah.
I could, it never hit me that episode where she's left with the box kids. Yes. Like, that is Angelica with the Rugrats.
Yeah, it became a straight Rugrats parody.
Yeah, our crew, some of our board artists are major Rugrats heads. They love Rugrats. And so that was an episode, like, down to the sound design. It was our homage to Rugrats.
Wow, man, that it was finally revealed for me once she said, "You dumb babies." And yes, also they are in like Frieza uniform costumes too. They both have Power Scouters on, even.
They've been fighting around the universe. They're finally back.
It's like Vegeta's Vegeta and
Nappa and Vegeta
Nappa's
finally.
How did I forget Nappa? Man? He's the fun one of the two. You're right. Like KO, it's not even that big a deal to him to fight those guys. Like they're just kind of in the middle of a series of fights.
Yeah, he's not saving real estate waiting for something from his dad anymore.
No real audio clips for this because it's just a lot of action, no dialogue. But then it felt like a checklist of him fighting the big bads you set up for the rest of the show. You've got Cosma in there, and Billion Million, and Formulax.
Good old Formulax.
Yeah. This could be a stupid question, but do you guys have table reads for your shows at all?
Well, for us, the storyboard pitch kind of functions as that.
Okay.
So that's sort of like the time when, because the storyboard artist pitches a show, and then we kind of use that pitch to see what lands, what doesn't, what jokes need to be longer or shorter. So that's kind of like, for us anyway, the closest thing you get to a table read on a storyboard-driven show.
This would be a tough one to do because of all of the stage direction and just how much things change.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
There was a lot of like extra stuff that we ended up having to like draw into like for like months afterwards.
It's true.
I like seeing what Formulax has all this power for just to do like a silly soft shoe.
Yes. Specifically using Huckleberry Hound's hat.
Oh, I didn't catch that. Yeah. Oh, that's great. I mean your love of H&B comes through there
for sure.
Well, and Cosma was such an interesting villain. Like I liked I like that you took time to have at least like one battle episode with her, and even dealt with like that she can grow and shrink, because I remembered seeing her on the board of villains, and then she's so giant in the next one. I was like, wait, what? Huh?
Yeah, and that was something we came up with based on like in that episode, her power. We see her like rearranging atoms and like teleporting these muffins.
Yes,
and so it's like, okay, well, if we're gonna do a big episode about her, well, what is the biggest scale she can possibly use that power at? And kind of as I was explaining earlier, it's like we had several episodes that kind of had a tone like that, which is like more of an adventure, you know, going off and doing these things. And a few of them are still there in the season, but it was like between that and a handful of other ones, we picked that one because it was just so much fun.
And to take a sidebar about the Cosmo episode, that actually was one of the episodes that we were actually writing when we found out about the cancellation. And so the Cosmo episode, it's kind of hard to parse this, but it's about the 5 stages of acceptance. They realize that, you know, Rad has been eaten. The first thing they do is deny it. Then they try to like say like, oh, well, maybe you can have these rocks and then we can have her back. And then they go like full on anger. They try to fight her. Then they get depressed and they get sucked into the black hole. And then when everything works out, they just accept it. And then they're like, you know, sometimes everything turns out okay. Like they just don't do anything, you know?
That episode, it's like...
It was very much us working through our feelings.
Totally. And then functionally, it's one of the only episodes in the season that exists basically for comedy.
Yeah.
And that's, you know, we really miss doing those. And so that we put extra time and love into just enjoying the wackiness and fun and silliness of that episode, along with it also being us grieving as we did for the whole 20 episodes.
But that's why, we wanted to make sure a lot of those characters got their due in Thank You for Watching the Show. Yeah.
And then after the villain fights, then I feel like this next sequence is kind of like a wish list of like team ups or special episodes you wanted to do. Yeah. Like you have like the Fursonas come back, which that was great to see.
And you finally get to see the robot Fursonas, which is good. Daryl's a hamster.
I'm glad he clarifies like and says, "I'm a hamster."
That was
that's a rare like non lip sync ADR joke.
No lip sync whatsoever. We were just in the booth doing the sound on it, and we were like, "That needs a joke." And so I just got in the booth and did that. I'm a hamster,
and now it makes me laugh every time. And the fact that it's not lip sync makes it even funnier.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, that was something you mentioned our previous time about what it's the benefits of being executive producer and a voice actor. Of just like, oh, we need another line here. Well, fortunately, the voice actor's right here, right now. I'll
slip a little joke in. Yeah.
There's a quick bit of Raymond. Like that feels like a musical episode you guys would have done. Raymond singing.
That was something that we did kind of want to do at some point. It was going to be called Ray and the Mons.
Yep.
And
an actual musical episode.
Yeah.
And Raymond is such a fun character. I love the Project Runway episode with Droop. That was such a fun one, especially his curse of capitalism at the end there. Rocketed off into the sky. But yes, then there's a series of team-ups in this next clip.
We've got to save the plaza!
We've got to save the planet! We've got to save the multiverse!
We've got to save the 4th dimension!
We need to save all space and time before it's too late. Red Action! You gotta help me! It feels like I'm accelerating through time. Let's see.
Don't worry, KO. It looks like your atoms are all maturing at the normal rate. Your brain waves are moving kind of fast, though.
My brain waves? But what is that? Things were moving so fast, and I didn't know what was happening, but I kept on fighting anyway.
Let's see. I think we actually teamed up on a lot of those team up ones because the Red Strike one we boarded together.
Yeah. Well, there was a version of it that was there.
Yeah, Kat did the acting on Red Strike.
And then I think there was additional stuff that was done in revisions. Yes. And then we did a couple passes like very late when we decided to add the additional cameos from other Cartoon Network shows.
And a lot of that one specifically was because in Crossover Nexus, we had to cut down a bunch of scenes from that one. And we accidentally cut the Class of 3000, Secret Saturdays.
And there was no Party Wagon.
And then we added a Party Wagon.
Yeah, just for good measure.
Party Wagon, as we all remember, was Craig Bartlett's.
Like mini movie?
It was like a movie.
Special?
Yeah.
Man, I don't remember that.
Post Hey Arnold.
Yeah, I think it aired once.
Yeah.
You can find it on YouTube, but like we basically, that was a weird email to send where it's just like out of nowhere, it's like, hey, can we use Party Wagon?
I mean, seeing Red Strike again, that's now when I saw that sequence, it took me back to our chat about crossover Nexus and how like you tease that Garnet you might see Garnet again sometime. Like you said, like, I know we miss these characters, and then you hit them there. Like, that was so great to see. Like, I knew you were checking off boxes for you guys.
And also part of it is our executive Conrad loves all that stuff, and he loves crossover Nexus and Red Strike. So part of that was like for him.
He really
we do make him happy.
He really wanted him back in there. And so and then we wanted to get Garnet in there. As we mentioned earlier, we had a Garnet crossover episode that we planned called Summer of Garnet, which was literally going to be about in the OKKO video game by Cappy, they invent a device that can summon characters from their PAL cards. So they would just be playing with this throughout the first act, but then KO has a unique PAL card from Crossover Nexus. So he would put that in and summon Garnet, but it would break the machine. So then it would just lead to Garnet working at Gar's Bodega for the summer.
Because there's no way to get back. And so she's like, well, I guess I'm here now. And so we see her like fold into the routines of the show over a long period of time.
She basically just takes Enid's job. But we didn't get to do that. And then also another one I boarded was that Captain Planet one. We were like, what if we had all of them back, but it was all of the Planeteers instead of just one.
And that was a thing where it's like, it would be a lot of weight on designs, but you were like, did you just do those designs yourself?
I did do those designs myself.
And so it's like, a lot of us kind of trying to take the burden off wherever possible. And like the Summer of Garnet thing, it's like interesting because it's like, I guess technically we could have done it in season 3.
We could have.
It's just that, it didn't seem like the pertinent choice to make.
Just didn't have
how to fill the slots.
And we kind of wanted to limit ourselves to
one crossover.
One crossover per half season. Because then it would just be too many crossovers. So
it makes sense.
And Sonic, we already. I mean, that's it.
But if we'd gotten 3B, Summer of Garnet would have
for
been
sure.
There.
Seeing all the Planeteers, that was such a treat. Like, I didn't see that coming at all, and like to get to see what the answer to what all of them would look like if they were in the OKKO universe. Like even Wheeler and Mati, like they were all there.
And all their designs are kind of a mix of their Hanna-Barbera and Deke designs also, which is like something I wanted to do. Like, they're a little different.
And Garnet's her Change Your Mind redesign too. Which that's great. Which like you also at the same. Okay, I'm curious on the timeline because Change Your Mind aired like 9 months before this. But you did the big fusion sequence.
Yes, I boarded on that. Sure.
What KO stuff were we working on when you boarded that fusion sequence?
I can't remember.
I just remember you showing it to me in my office and being like, "Wow, this is cool." But I don't remember what part of the pipeline we were at.
I feel like we were also doing season 2 finale maybe around that time.
It might have been earlier.
It might have been earlier.
Oh wow!
Well, I feel like Change Your Mind because Change Your Mind, was done a pretty decent while before it aired.
I cannot remember for the life of me. That was always a tough thing because, for instance, Crossover Nexus, we didn't know when that was going to air, so we kept Garnet in her older design. But this one we knew for sure we could use the new one. So
and I like that Garnet kind of like nods at Steven, nods at KO, and it almost feels like she's saying like, "Oh, I know what's happening to you." But anyway, because she knows everything. That's Garnet's secret.
After that is Red Action, I think, and it's like. It was just like a natural fit to put a scene with Red Action there just because she is our resident time travel expert. And so KO is under the impression that he's dealing with, again, a literal physical problem. And so he's going to come to the time travel expert about that.
And that's, it's one of the things that when you write, you always need to remember that you have to have check-ins on the goals and like what's going on in the episode, lest the audience get like a little lost. So that was our excuse of doing one of those.
And then you slid in a bit and helped and did some extra stuff with the Hue Troop in the background.
Yes, that's right. Yeah,
in that sequence, which is great. We would have loved to do more Hue Troop episodes. We had some ideas for ones where like we go to where they are and experience their adventures, and we didn't get to do those. But
we get to another Hue Troop episode later in this.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
No, I love seeing the Hue Troop return for this the battle for time and space, and like. The who's the woman that designed them? Okay, so
Red Action I designed, but then Mira Angchua designed the other 4. She and Parker Simmons, who created Mau Mau, did the first episode where they existed and defined their all of their personalities.
No, and I have been really enjoying like Mira's independent comics.
Oh yeah, she's amazing.
They are great.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, so seeing the Hugh Troop again, that was a nice treat too. And like and the 4th dimension. You had a moment of that too. Like I wanted to know so many more answers. From her.
Hollow Jane. Yeah. Why does she have a eye patch? I don't know. She's going on some crazy adventures.
Yep.
and also the great movement on KO, and he's like, my brainwaves? Like that animation was awesome.
Yeah, that was fun.
But yeah, so then KO, like he sees who he thinks really did it all, Boxman.
I did it. Of course, you will never stop me. So Boxman was behind this. Once I take him down, everything will be back to normal.
Well, and I forgot to mention right before that, it's like he fights every other villain, like for a giant villain team up episode, and including like I think your
Galgarian.
Galgarian was in there.
We tried to put every single villain in the show in just one big pan because a lot of them we have no reason to catch up with them later, so. We wanted to make sure we got everybody in. And Dogman's there, too.
Yes, yeah.
He's definitely demonic somehow.
Demonic / angelic.
Yes.
He's got 2 sides to him, just like us all. No, that Boxman, the whole Boxman series of fights was great because he is the lead villain. He's the villain in the opening of the show.
Yep.
Like of course, the final battle is going to be against him.
Absolutely.
And all the different shots of him, like I think my favorite is Box Venom, the ultimate dad.
Yes.
Like that's
it makes no sense.
I don't know how that happened.
And then I love the sequence where they punch each other, and that was I think
Jeff
that was
Liu
sweetened a lot by Jeff Liu.
Yeah, born in
and it was just really cool.
Yeah.
Oh, and also Dr. R. Boxman. The design of his logo behind it is just so great. Yeah.
Made sure to skirt all the copyright on
it's
that.
A parody.
You know.
10% different.
And then, Box Max, the design comes from the final boss of the first OKKO game.
The mobile game.
Yeah,
by Double Stallion. Yeah. We always had wanted to put Box Max in the show somewhere. We didn't quite have a place in these seasons. We had always thought, maybe if we get to do more, we can have him... We can have Boxman actually become more of a rough and tumble fight villain instead of seething scientist villain. But yeah.
Once all those fights are done, then KO thinks everything's fine, and then it's time to like say goodbye. Like the goodbyes just start coming, and like it is like an emotional gut punch to see. Even in it's moving so fast, you barely have time to think. But these like little tastes of the episodes where characters leave a show, like they really reminded me of watching like usually more in live action shows of when an actor leaves a show.
Right.
Yeah. And like the main character's still there. I watched a lot of ER and they had like 80 episodes. There's so many characters.
But yeah, and then KO's not ready. It's just like when we had to say goodbye to our crew.
Yeah.
That's true. It's just like the day happens and it's like, here I am. I was not ready for this.
And I like that Enid went through this whole arc of also accepting her witch side on top of her ninja-ness.
Yeah, and she literally is going to Lunanova.
I was going to ask
Magical Academy. That's me paying them back because in Little Witch Academia, Rebecca Sugar and I appear as background characters.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Okay, I didn't know that.
I don't know why, but in there's like a couple crowd shots, and we're definitely in there. And like, so does like Connie also appears, and I think Dipper from Gravity Falls.
Yeah.
Just randomly in the background. So I was like, all right, I got to get them back somehow.
Right.
So.
And of course, Enid's journey is very complicated. In a lot of ways, her main character arc was very complete in season 2. And with what we want to do with her in the future, it was just like, she now is comfortable enough in herself that she doesn't need to feel the pressure to be a certain way. She was rebelling against her witch side because it was a pressure she was receiving from her parents. But now she's like, okay, now I've reached a point in my life where I can find the parts of that I use for myself. Mm-hmm. And she's be able to kind of create carve a new corner in the world for herself.
Mm-hmm. And similarly, Rad is able to be like, oh, I have my heritage from this other planet. I can actually be proud of that and go defend it and be part of a whole, cultural thing from my parents' planet.
Yeah, I was surprised to see him join the Space Force. It kind of felt Star Trek-y, but also a little Gundam-y too.
Yes. Yeah, that was the idea for sure.
And it was definitely just for maximum shock and awe and gut punch and humor all at the same time.
Yeah. And the SF that he has on his uniform, our background artist Ryan Cecil Smith, that's his indie comics imprint.
So
we snuck that in there. Yeah.
No, I love the posing is the same each time. I'll never leave, and then I gotta go.
This sequence was definitely the kind of the key exciting germ that we built the thing around.
Yeah,
was just,
for sure.
How much this can hurt.
Yeah, well, that's how it is as an adult too. Is you just have to be like, oh, I guess another person's leaving, and where I live, and I might never see them again. I don't know.
For sure.
It's these are the lessons KO needs to learn to truly grow up. It's so sad he doesn't even get a last hug with Enid.
Yeah.
It's just all these goodbyes and then more and more changes, and yes, then we get to the part I call the clip wedding after wedding after wedding. But yeah, was there a Simpsons feel to, Simpsons clip, this is not exactly a fake clip show. It's like a reverse fake clip show almost.
Right, for sure.
Yeah. Oh, you know what? No, let me play the saying goodbye to Rad and Enid section. Sorry.
Sure.
I thought I had fixed it, but this wasn't a problem I could solve with battles.
Goodbye, KO.
What?
I'm heading off to Witch College.
Enid?
Huh?
Why witch college?
I already told you, KO. I've realized that being comfortable with my witch side isn't going to make me any less of a ninja.
Oh, well, I'm happy for you. Can I have a goodbye hug before you go?
Of course, buddy. Come here.
Enid?
Don't worry, little dude. Enid might have bailed, but I'm never gonna leave you.
Thanks, Rad.
Well, I gotta leave you now, KO. I'm gonna lead the Planet X Space Force. Blorp!
Eden says blorp. He's that in touch with his Planet X side.
Yeah, he's totally accepted himself now. It was fine. It was fine for Ed. He did it off screen.
And yes, then the KO turns to the only person he can in this trying time, Mommy Carol, and things still go downhill for him there.
I thought I'd have time to enjoy and experience these moments. I thought things would stay the same forever. Mom, I need your sage advice. KO? Everything's moving too fast and I can't keep up. Huh? Oh! Look, I just have to figure out what's going on soon, or I'll have no time left.
Oh, KO. When you're young, it feels like you've got all the time in the world. But as you grow up, life moves too quick to...
Mom! I mean, congratulations! Congrats, you too!
Mazel tov!
Yeah.
The congresswoman marries them all. I like that.
Yes.
Too.
Yeah.
But okay, let's talk about Nick and Joff there.
Oh, yeah.
That scene. For me and my husband watching it when it was live to go wow, that was just that had to be the first same-sex male wedding on Cartoon Network.
Oh yeah, maybe.
Probably, yes. I would say very likely.
Definitely, definitely Kiss for sure.
Yeah.
And I think, for us, it was just, I don't even think there was a discussion about it. It was more like these characters were dating for the whole series.
Yeah.
I think, I don't know if we ever were super specific about it.
We were as clear about it as we could be.
Yeah, but we were always like, oh, they're a couple. That's what's funny, that it's a G.I. Joe and a Shaolin monk, basically.
Opposites attract.
Yeah,
joke.
yeah. But I did personally animate that kiss.
The episode was, and when you say animate, you mean animate. Like the episode was, we had received the animation, and at that point it didn't have the kiss because it was they were mid kiss, and it was like the hug joke where we cut away, and then you were just like, I'm just going to do it, and you went in and you drew on top of it, and you drew the kiss.
I'm gonna make sure it's in there before we cut away because it was supposed to be like. Originally, we thought, all these moments need to be like
incomplete.
The suspense of seeing an incomplete thing. But then I was like, it just felt bad when it was like, you finally get to see these two characters kiss, and then you cut it
away.
So,
And well, thank you for that extra effort to animate that.
Of course.
That really meant a lot. Yeah, Carol and Gar's wedding is so special too. That through the whole series, they went through the arc of just being like awkward old coworkers to now fully committed and married couple.
Yeah.
That's so sweet. And
that was something, Toby, you really pushed forward about making sure that we're not cowardly, that we can actually hook two characters up and have them be in a relationship through a lot of the series. And Carol and Gar were together for I'd say half of the series almost. So that was something.
It didn't make them less funny. It didn't make anything bad happen. You can put characters together and things don't have to. You don't have to run.
It
away.
actually gave us a lot more stories,
the
fact that they were actually a couple. So it was fun to finally actually see them get married. Yeah,
a very super minor thing to mention. Incredibly tiny callback is when he refers to Carol's sage advice. Something he says in either the first episode or the first production episode.
I think so.
He calls it sage advice. So it's him going back to what he would expect to normally do in one of these episodes.
It's literally something from the pitch book we selected to the net. We gave to the network. Carol's the person KO goes to for sage advice.
Yeah, and look, KO probably would have really loved to be part of all those weddings.
Yes, that's true.
It's very sad.
He would have been the ring bearer.
I was going to say maybe when the current KO occupies his body in that episode, I like to think he just dropped the pillow and was just what's going on? And also I really like the design of dressed up Carol, and you can tell the you don't normally see this with cartoon characters. She is wearing makeup more than her usual thing, dark lipstick and eyeliner and everything.
Yeah, we had a lot of fun. The designers got to do fun dress ups for everybody.
Yeah, even Potato and Cold tied the knot. That's
a lot of them are recolors of their prom outfits, which was also fun to go back to those.
Well, I only have one tuxedo I'd wear to prom and then my wedding. Sure, yeah. So there's not a lot. I don't got the money for a new tux. Then when Keo runs away from their wedding, then that's when the wistfulness really hits in the show, and just seeing the titles of episodes just fly by, and even imagine animation sheets of paper pass by.
And that was some of the stuff that you see in these next scenes is just an invention that the board artist Mira did.
Yes,
in the pitch, we were sitting there, and then suddenly she invented this whole thing where the titles are on the walls, and even the upcoming sequence where it's on a screen, where he enters a theater. All these, they're very. It's dreamlike. It's it's a representation of how he feels, and it hit us really hard at the pitch. Really hard. Just wow, she's really showing us visually the way we're feeling.
Yeah, and she wrote that KO's whole monologue there. It really spoke to how we were all feeling in the room at that time, and everybody was well, we gotta keep that.
Well, here, let me play that monologue.
What is this? It's not fair. We were supposed to go on more adventures. I was scared. Life was moving too quick for me. Everything I knew, everything I cared about, before I knew it, they were all becoming distant memories. I'd enjoyed spending time with all these people I loved. I wasn't ready for it to end. The bodega! Maybe someone there can help me. Huh? And then I understood. Life wasn't rushing ahead because of some villain's evil plan. This is just how it feels to grow up. Time flashes by in the blink of an eye. Sometimes you're present for it, sometimes you're not. So it's important to remember what you have and enjoy it while it lasts. If I didn't stop worrying about missing things, I'd miss out on even more.
Yeah.
And something to note about KO's monologue in this episode, and of course KO's monologue is something we leaned on a lot in the show, and especially in the beginning episodes, is like a key part of his character. A distinction that happened here is that he's speaking in the past tense for the first time.
Yes.
Every other episode he's speaking in the present tense. And so you could, I suppose, surmise that this is coming from the perspective of the older KO we see at the end of the episode.
I think that's what it is.
Okay.
And we just had a lot of fun leaning on all that stuff with this monologue, but especially it's something we had all talked about like, you know, when you get older, the more years you live, the less significant 1 year is. So so we're constantly in this like time dilation, like we're having this experience where everything goes faster because we've experienced more time. So everything gets quicker and quicker and quicker. And then we're just realizing like, oh, that's how it always is to grow up. At the end of every year, when you say Happy New Year, that year felt faster than all the ones previous. So we're just trying to get that through.
And it's painful when those years are filled with things that you really enjoy doing.
Yeah.
And then you see
people
that,
you really love too.
And then you see that in the future, this won't be that way anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't feel that long ago that we recorded the first podcast with you guys.
Yeah.
And it was like 18 months ago.
I know.
Yeah. Crinkly Wrinkly is there too. So is he like a god of time, or is he like is he also beyond time?
There's a lot left to discover about Crinkly Wrinkly.
Yeah. he is an all-purpose character.
Yeah.
He can make people a werewolf, or he can also be Keith David if he needs to be. And then also just getting a little clip package in it of like these happy moments from the show, and it also really, you know, it lets the viewer know like, see, look at this season 1 shot, and now here we are in this late in the show.
And we made a point that the clips would include plenty from every season, because a lot of times when shows are looking back, they're only looking back at the beginning of their time, and so we tried to. Some of the scenes are from season 3, some from season 2, and I'll just reiterate that to me as an audience member, the power of the visual stuff that Mira put together there by setting it up in the theater that way, it really caught me off guard and it felt very truthful in a way that I couldn't quite put words to.
Yeah, we couldn't quite. You know, that's why I love storyboard-driven animation, because there are some things you just can't write in a script. It's not possible. You can't write an effective sight gag or even an effective, like, visually evocative moment in a script. You really do need to give it to somebody who has the visual skill at making you feel that way, or can, you know, actually draw a sight gag. It's just... You know, for me, I've yet to read a script that feels like I'm watching a visually stimulating cartoon.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense.
And then when it comes to the monologue content, it all comes back to kind of what we talked about at the very beginning about why this episode was made and what we were feeling. And it's as direct as we get in the whole episode.
Yeah, for sure.
It's us speaking to the audience, and from seeing the reactions to the episode, it's clear the audience felt the same way about their experience watching the show, because these shows air in these insane schedules. Sometimes they'll air a bunch in 1 week, and you don't really get a chance to savor them, and then sometimes they air really slowly, and you know, an episode starts to have too much purpose that didn't even need to have. And it's, you know, the experience of time in watching a show is, you know, it's a lot like what can happen in life.
Yeah, it's I hadn't considered it, but yeah, I've, like, for example, with your show with Point Prep, there was a little break between a couple episodes of Point Prep, and it made something a bigger cliffhanger just through how long it took than maybe you guys meant. But
certainly.
Yeah, absolutely. We definitely didn't mean it to be like, what? How was it? 9 months?
Yeah, I mean, it was on the app.
Yeah. Oh, boy. Oh, God.
TV shows are too hard to watch these days.
Yeah, they really are.
But
that whole situation is worthy of a crusty, you know, that's all I'll say about that.
But yeah, then when KO finally learns to just like embrace it and kind of just go with the flow of time, like, there's a great song that just like starts up this.
Oh, yeah.
I should have said, okay, go back to Let's Fight to the End real quick. That full-length version of the opening theme the fight scene, that was great.
That was something we'd wanted to do from the very beginning.
And we just never found time for it, but luckily we had like some budget squirreled away, and
there was like a gap in the
eventually-
schedule as well.
Yeah, and there was a gap in the schedule, so we just like let them loose, and we were like, spend the amount of time you would spend on a full episode just producing this song.
Wow.
And they it's all like live instruments, live horns, live drums, guitar, everything. They brought the singer from the opening back. They wrote completely new lyrics for the whole thing.
And it was very powerful because and when we received it, it was like we didn't have any like notes. They invented all the lyrics, and we were just like, what you just did is absolutely amazing. And we were just like, thank you. We were just really happy. And like, I listened to it all the time.
Yeah.
And I love the music video that Cartoon Network put together for the song.
Yeah, it's really good.
We couldn't put the whole song in the episode. And so they released it. You can get it on iTunes or wherever you want to get it. And,
it's on
and
Spotify,
you can watch that,
whatever.
Yeah, great music video that it's like a really well curated, edited music video of scenes from the show set to the song.
And then, just a few weeks later, they did this montage song for the end, which, we gave them a couple feelings that we wanted it to be. And
I just remember, like, when we handed it out to them, just, like, spilling my guts, trying to describe the feeling of what we were trying to, just being like, life is moving too fast, it's painful, it's beautiful, it's like all the pain and joy of being alive. I was like, it was way too much.
But then they came back with this track that just like it felt so right, and it fit the tone of the show and all the stuff that you see. Yeah,
we shift into like a first-person view of KO for some sequences, and then others are just scenes he's not a party to.
Yes,
but yeah, I mean the first-person view of seeing Rad and Enid arrive and hearing Enid say like, "Oh, you've grown so much." It's like that was a moment like, "Oh man, KO's." Character designs changed again.
Yeah,
like,
and it's
a little tip off.
And we're
not going back. Yeah,
and it's more effective in that moment to be like, this thing is happening that I wish I could have seen, and I don't get to see it because I'm with KO right now and I'm seeing it. And also returning to KO's physical point of view also brings us back to the very first shot in the very first episode where we're sitting in the back of the seat and looking at stuff from KO's point of view.
Yeah,
and I also like you're reading the line like, "You're all witchy noise." I like a good like Eric Andre kind of like noise. Yeah. But then it's a lot of stuff just flies right by. Like we see Rad is now done with the Space Force and he's started his own cat cafe, which is a great ending for him. I like there's a little moment there where like Droop looks at him and while pushing back her hair that I was like, hey, what's up there?
Yeah, I don't know.
Sure, why not?
Yeah, they were like, she was his season 1 crush. Who knows? Maybe it comes back in the future.
I like little teases like that. Lets fans make up more of the story themselves.
Yeah,
I mean, and really, a lot of those sequences, they're meant to do a lot of things, but one of them is, and I've used this phrasing before, but the goal is to like just sort of hand the toy box to the audience and the fans, where it's like, make of this stuff what you will and do with it whatever you want.
It's something I really enjoy in media when there's sublime factor where, you don't actually get the whole story and you're left as an audience to fill that in yourself. And the thing you come up with is probably even greater than what we could come up with. It's like, it's like the noodle incident in Calvin and Hobbes. Like,
right.
You'll never know what that is, but the thing you're imagining it being is incredible. So we wanted to just have like a ton of those like in a row to make people be like, how'd they end up there? Like, what is this?
Yeah, like seeing Red Action and Enid running the dojo now themselves to teach kids how to be ninjas and witches and robot action fighters.
She's training some children who are they? Are they the original Hugh Troop? Are they the future Hugh Troop? Yeah. Are they just Red and Enid's children? Like, none of it is said, and it's for the audience to have as much fun with it as they want.
It seems like a time paradox if she's teaching herself how to be.
Hey, that's how she lives.
She is from the future, and we know she's not the original Red.
That's
true.
Yeah.
There's. Yeah, we don't know.
you could. I mean, none of this is in any way set in stone. But if you wanted to, you could gleam that Red in a time loop trained the original generation of the Hue Troop, and they may or may not have been her children.
Yes.
I have no idea.
know.
That's for you.
Yeah.
You can do it with that whatever you want.
And then we get to see like the parental figures in the show kind of age up and retire. Like Boxman retires and leaves it to Ernesto and Jethro.
And it's like, everybody gets to have some version of a happy ending. And like I was going on earlier about KO and Venomous, yada yada yada. He's a villain. He's not necessarily redeemed and forgiven in that relationship. But Boxman is willing to walk this walk with Venomous and try to help him grow.
Yeah. And that was something that one of our board artists, Ryan, came to us with and was like, we really need to make sure that Boxman and Venomous, we see some like road ahead for them, no matter what it is.
And probably part of it is that, in their relationship, Boxman was always so incredibly subservient to Venomous, and they're probably now going to be a lot more in equal footing. Venomous has been humbled a lot by this point.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I liked to imagine that that Venomous, after the last time KO beat him in the one scene we see, it maybe made him re-examine his life. I'd hope.
Yeah. Well, he took a big L, and also he realizes he screwed up with Boxman. Mm. So it was good to put that in there.
Yeah, I love that they reconnect in like kind of a rom-com kind of way.
Yeah.
Or like a Love Actually scene.
Yeah,
yes,
Ryan came up with that whole scenario.
It was really funny.
And then the aging up of the parents, that whole thing with the cake that we see, that was something Geneva added very late.
Yeah.
And she came in and I think that really, really anchors the entire sequence.
Yeah, I love all the new designs.
Yeah, it's
the entire group.
Super fun.
Yeah, it was fun to make all those different designs over and over and over. Yeah.
Yeah, KO ages into different demographics of television. I like that.
Naturally, yeah. People always, that was something people would get so mad at me about on Twitter. The fact that none of the characters in the show have ages. Mm-hmm. So it's just like, they're just cartoon characters. Like, because then you get into the issue, it's like, you watch The Simpsons and it's like, is Homer 36, 38, 40? Then you have to think, like, is time moving? Is it not moving? We were just like, let's just say there are no ages for any character. They're all vague demographics.
And all the design, all the altered designs for, like, even Rad and Enid, too, like, seeing them both trying out different looks for themselves. And I like Gar. I like to assume that Gar, as what was left of his hair starts to disappear more, he's like, I'm going to be a hat guy now.
Yes, absolutely.
It's a bridge we all must cross one day.
As the endings are coming fast and furious, too, we also get to see, like, Real Magic Skeleton and Brandon, another pair of bros that are two of my favorites in the show.
Yeah, it was interesting coming up with an ending for them, because it's like, for them the pleasure is in the status quo in a way, and so it's like, how do we have them, RMS does get to grow and change, and he gets to experience, all the upward mobility that he wanted, and he gets to comfort Brandon, and Brandon gets to keep on living the way he wants to live.
But we don't want them to be different, because if RMS left, he wouldn't get to be with Brandon. So
I love seeing that Brandon, just like the little nod they have to each other, like Brandon's just like, I got drums. That's my ending. I bought some drums.
He gets to play them all day.
Yeah, he never has to work for real again.
Yeah, that's right. He's been banging sticks all this time, and now he finally has a real drum kit.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, I guess I'm hoping RMS gets to buy all the fancy food he wanted to try now.
I'm sure you can tip now.
Yes.
And we also get to see that Weirdo and Beardo reconnected, and like their fried rice looks delicious. Like, man.
Our boarder Dave Allegri, who loves drawing food, he drew that.
And Weirdo is a character who just appears in the background of like one episode.
Of Special Delivery.
Yeah, and Dave was just like, "This is what I'm going to do," and we were like, "Go for it."
Like, all right, I don't think anyone cares about what happened to Weirdo, but sure.
There's multiple characters that even I, as like a fan of the show who rewatched most episodes, I'm like, I don't remember Weirdo. I don't remember Squeezo.
Yeah, it's so inside you. It's we're being incredibly self-indulgent. So.
More so even than usual.
So apologies to the audience, and also you're welcome to the audience.
Yeah, no, I love it. Yes, we in one of the voice clips I have here, Shannon Shannon gets her own spin-off.
It's me, Shannon. Please welcome to the stage, Joe Copper.
Hey there, folks. I told my wife I wanted to switch from French press to drip, and she said that was grounds for divorce. Oh, hey, oh, oh.
And you even like kind of do a visual reference back to Shannon's like, it's me. Like that kick animation on her is one of my favorite drawings in the whole show.
Danny Ducker did that clip, and the Joe Cuppa episode was one of her first episodes, of which she toiled over a lot. And so she was like, I'm going to get my revenge on this character.
I have a lot of affection for that weird character, and everyone gets to be in a nice spot. You know, Shannon, she just gets to do whatever she wants now, and has a whole audience of hers to appreciate it. And, you know, Raymond, his band is still going, and so everybody's happy.
I was glad you guys fit in one last bad Joe Cuppa joke.
Yeah, there was some
great Joe Cuppa joke. Yeah,
there was some back and forth on that. I think that was the original joke that Danny put in, and then she asked us to come up with a better joke, and I came up with a different joke. But we recorded a few different ones.
Yeah.
But in the end, we decided to go back to her original one. We liked it better.
And it's great because Joe Cuppa doesn't have lip sync. So
yeah.
We could just put whatever we want. It was great because Joe's voice actor came back, Andre Duverger.
Yeah.
Who's he's a writer for Conan O'Brien, and I think he was actually like he had to go back to the show for the taping, like when we were doing it. So he just like ran in, did a bunch of, it was very much like that Krusty bit where he comes in, rattles off the jokes, and he's like, all right, I'm out of here. And he's just like,
ready to go.
Yeah. I mean, I think he's one of the funniest people in the world.
Yeah.
Like, I think his comedy is amazing, and his stuff on Conan is so funny. And then again, for him, it must have been the weirdest day to come into all of us so emotional recording the final episode, and he has to come in and read the stupidest line ever and then leave. It's just like, because he was in 2 other episodes. He was in his original, and then he had a cameo in the Christmas one, or the Shucksgiving one.
Yeah.
And we get to see that the racist executive is in hell, which that's good.
That was a big surprise when we saw the board. We were like, wow.
we did not hand that one up. It's just like, oh, okay.
Yeah, I think the S&P note was just don't have it be that his naked ass is being slapped.
Yeah, so he's in,
and we're like, we can work with
pants.
that.
Yeah, it's fine.
And I like getting to see the ghosts, and that I guess the ghosts get to hang out in hell if they want.
Yeah, they get to go there. They're ghosts.
They can go back and forth. Yeah. I like, that they can, that they're just hanging out in like basically a hot tub and just like this guy gets spanked. Which, I mean, as far as like hell punishments, like spanked for all eternity.
Yeah. I mean, maybe they're in hell. Maybe they're just at the bottom of the volcano.
Yeah, we don't know.
It could be.
Yeah, I think they might. We said that it's also possibly the disappointment zone from We Messed Up.
Oh yeah,
as well.
I just love.
We have no idea.
Yeah, the way that Iggy boarded, like the tiptoeing around as though he knows he's going to get slapped if the ghosts catch him. I was just like, I saw it, and I was like, what? What is this? It's so funny.
One of 2 characters we permanently killed on the show.
Wait, which was the other one?
Skateboard nerd.
Oh yes, yeah.
He died in a flashback, and he just never came back.
We see his grave later. That's right. Yeah,
he's my database. I couldn't stand him. Had to get rid of him.
We see that the Point folks get to all happily retire. They're all reconnected now. We see that Astro Boy kid.
Oh yeah. Combo breaker.
Yeah, he gets to get into Point Prep. He's finally made it. Like I love you said the person who did Combo Breaker's voice like played an Astro Boy.
Yeah, that's
something.
Candy That was Candy Milo, and we actually didn't know she was Astro Boy.
Wow.
We had just been like, oh, Candy can do it because we knew her.
She's done a bajillion things.
She's done a bajillion things. I mostly know her as the second Dexter. And I was oh, there's someone who can basically do like, she's like a super pro. She can do anything.
Her energy level is astronomical.
Yeah,
so she was perfect for that character.
It was crazy. She tore up everything. She just did an incredible job. And then, after we were like, man, she did so great. And then we looked her up and it was like, Astro Boy. She was Astro Boy in that 2003 reboot. Which is,
okay.
The basis for the great GBA game.
Yeah, the Treasure Classic.
Yeah. But
which had every Tezuka thing referenced in it. That's what I love.
It's one of my favorite GBA games for sure. But
let's just do a Retronauts about that right now.
Let me get my notes here.
Yeah, as things are going fast and furious, even like Baby Teeth gets to grow up in this section.
Yep.
Baby Teeth in general, I love that character. That it's like the Simpsons pets who are just like never around until they are around.
Yep, we definitely thought that we'd like, it's, to quote Gary Marshall, it's always good to have an animal to cut to. We thought there'd be this dinosaur that was around and could do cute things, and we just never did it. We did it in 2 episodes.
I think it was also because an early pitch for the show, we drew Baby Teeth over to the side, and an executive in the room said, "What's that?" And I was like, that's Baby Teeth. He's a tiny dinosaur who's their pet. And they were just like, I love that. That's great. And we were like, yes, sold it.
I like Baby Teeth too. It's just that, the room was rarely made for Baby Teeth.
No.
And so we did the one episode where Baby Teeth's introduced and flees.
Yeah.
And then we did the Beardo episode where they go on the adventure together.
Yeah.
And if we got another season, we would have come up with the greatest. It would have won an Emmy.
Yeah.
It would have been the greatest episode of animated television, the third Baby Teeth episode. That
probably a Peabody too. Yeah.
Ooh.
And you even make time to get Boxman and Logic back together too.
Yes.
Like they get to make up in this quick clip.
But I must say you've done quite well for yourself, my stars.
Hello, family. I'm home.
I enjoyed all the screaming.
So, yeah.
Any screaming cartoons I'm a big fan of.
Boxman, specifically also a reference to Gossamer from Looney Tunes, where Bugs Bunny does the whole routine. My stars. Yeah.
Oh, I know. That's great.
And then that Purd scene was specifically a gift to our animatic editor, who would clip the Purd yell from like one of the first time he appeared and put it in wherever he could. And we were just like, let's just do a scene that's only screaming, because he'll love it.
We knew that we had to give Purd something, otherwise he'd be really sad.
Yeah.
And so we came up with this incredibly absurd ending where we get to see how he lives his life.
Yeah, and like, the animatic editor, that's somebody who we spend like a lot of time with because he has an opinion on the show. He's the kind of person who, he doesn't actually come to the storyboard pitches because he wants to feel out the show like in the edit, like as he's doing it. And so he had a relationship to the show that a lot of us didn't have. He would see the show for the first time disassembled like a puzzle and then put it together. So he would get very attached to little pieces of the puzzle, and Purd's Scream was one of those.
Yeah, and he was a uniquely helpful animatic editor, and his opinions were very useful. And if ever an episode was short or long, he would do a pass where he would find a way to cut the right things or extend the right things, and it was incredibly it was a massively important element of the show's creative.
Yeah.
And also in the Boxman scene, there's a subtle ring on him. Like we didn't see the wedding happen, but him and Boxman or him and Venomous both have rings on in their final shots.
Have rings on. We don't know the story of those rings, but I think we can assume they gave them to each other.
I would hope. That's my personal hope. Yeah, and also we get to see that like Fink did the perfect path for her becoming a major league gamer.
Yes.
Like that she's in the videos game league.
Yes.
That's great.
Ryan pitched that, and we were just like, that's perfect. She just quit villainy and became a pro gamer, which is, I mean, at this point, way more profitable.
Yeah. She's going to make way more money than if she became like a football player or whatever. Yeah. And I like her design, too, of like this just kind of sassy teen in like biker shorts and stuff.
Yeah.
Even that sign in the audience, like, bully me.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Speaking of another one I had forgotten about, like Chameleon Jr., his scene, I was like, oh, okay, yeah, I remember him now.
I don't remember how we landed on that concept.
We talked about it for a long time, like where characters would end up in like writer's room and story meetings. And I think a lot of people were like charting the courses of characters. Mm-hmm. And I think Chameleon Jr. we were specifically like, oh, he would find religion for sure.
He's corn again.
Yeah, the final corn joke in the show.
Yes, and he mellowed out, which is good. He changed. Someone rejected him, and he just like takes it in stride. He doesn't have to insult them anymore.
Yeah, and previously the last time we saw him was like a brief cameo in Dark Plaza where he eats KO in a helpful team up way.
Yeah, he was a good guy in that one too.
Yeah.
And then we get to see like there's a great fake out of what you think is a baby with Carol, and it's breakfast. That was a good one. And then the birthdays just like come fast and furious in the show. Yeah, I guess seeing Gar change the last time you see them at the 35 plus birthday celebration, like that was the one that really got me because I saw it on my 37th birthday. So I'm like, I am as old as this birthday on the screen here. And also like Carol and Gar in their older forms, they actually really, to me, looked a lot like my parents now, or my mom and stepdad. Like,
I think for all of us, our parents are right about that age because, KO became our demographic. And so, we really had to think about like, what do our birthdays look like?
The feeling of watching the sequence as it gets faster and faster and time starts to go faster and faster. It's very complicated, I think. And, it's a lot to take in. And it's just like, it's a little almost scary, the speed that it starts to go, and which is something that again, it's hard to put your finger on, but I'm really happy with how that turned out.
And and before we get to the final scene, we also do see that like Ginger survived. She faked her death one last time, and then also we get to see Abuela Garcia's bodega.
Oh yeah,
it's like, but where did that one come in? I didn't even think that Gar needed like an extra origin there.
Well, it came from an episode we didn't get to do, which was actually going to be about. And this was going to be a third season episode, which was going to be Gar telling KO the story of how he first became a masked wrestler. And it was going to take place in the old country. It's just Mexico. When Gar was a kid. We actually started writing a little bit of it with Diego Milano, who is the creator of Victor and Valentino. And when we were describing like the small Mexican town he came from, he was like, "Oh, that's the same as the setting for my pilot that I just made, Victor and Valentino." So then we were just like, okay, they're one and the same. Like, Gar grew up along Victor and Valentino and then became a masked wrestler, and then, OKKO happened in the future of that series.
Final absurdist nonsense crossover.
And so when we came to the point of doing that, we were just like, we just asked Diego, like, hey, can we just borrow like some backgrounds from your show? And then we actually freelanced to their background artist to draw the bodega, and then we find out that Gar had a bodega that was his childhood bodega, which belonged to his grandmother.
And that kind of brings us back to like why of all things when he got that plot of land from President of the Universe did he decide to build a bodega. We had a lot of ideas for that story because he was a young Gar, probably a lot like young KO, but a little more rebellious. He has problems with authority, and we were going to tie that to why he had such trouble relating with Foxtail and things like that. But
and then we get to see him put on the mask and become Elbow for the first time. But we didn't get to do that story, so
I missed out on a wrestling episode.
Yeah,
it's true.
That's true.
It's true. It would have been a really good wrestling episode. We had thought about it.
Probably would have won an Emmy.
Yeah, Peabody also.
Yeah.
So after all the birthdays, all of that, we get one more flash forward to the one last ode, the 1,000th episode of OKKO, and I just have the full clip right here.
I am Robbie, and I have come to destroy. I was going to grow up too fast and miss everything, but I think I managed to make the best of it.
Mr. KO is pretty cool, but like, how did he even get up there?
He's level 100, dude. Come on.
So, that's the story. I hope you liked it.
Every second that you see is 24 connected pieces. Thank you for coming. Thank you for staying.
Thank you for watching the show.
There it is.
And like, so there are a few choices. I mean, there's so much to get into there, but like the choice of actually playing the song at the end came from Nick Veith, the animatic editor.
Yes.
And I remember the animatic being cut for the first time, a big deal, you know, because it's the first time you get to see the episode play out with all the voices. And I remember this episode's animatic, I'd heard that it had just been completed, and it was right when I showed up to work early one day. And I was sitting in my office with my girlfriend Maddie, and I was like, hey, we're here early, how about we watch this animatic for this final episode? And we sat down and we watched it, and that moment, the very final line happens, and I just, for the first time, finally absolutely collapsed into tears. Like, I just could not keep it together. Because I've been keeping it together the whole time. Like, we'd said goodbye to most of our crew, you know, well, probably half, you know, a third of our crew, whatever. We're already saying our goodbyes, you know, and that was the moment when, like, finally I just absolutely fell apart. And it
hit hard because, like, even when we were recording that episode, you know, we had such a great group of actors and actresses who recorded the show. And it really started to set in as we were doing the episode that, you know, this was goodbye and that we weren't going to get to do it again. And we had so much fun. And, you know, Courtney even, like, it was hard for her to get through that thank you for watching the show. You know, that was the best take we got because, you know, she was really, you know, she was starting to break up during it. And so were all of us. It was really something special to get that back. And our animatic editor, to his credit, was like he was like put the ending song under it, and it really just like really hit hard. So we had to like make sure we kept that through all versions of the show. Yeah.
No, when you hear the end theme in an episode of a show, like it makes you feel like this is it. Like this is the ending here. Like it adds even more emotional impact, especially when like It's Only Magic is such a beautiful song anyway. And to hear KO sing along with his own theme song and bust out the logo one more time too. Yeah. And but the sequence there was like shot for shot from the first episode.
Yeah, and of course
arrival and all that.
Yeah, and of course Mira had boarded that sequence originally, so she was able to, you know, revisit the thing that she established.
Yeah, and a lot of that was things that she made. But then also instead of Daryl, we subbed in two new characters who are Rob and Sarah. Rob and Sarah came from the first mobile game. They were originally created by the studio Double Stallion artists there at that studio because we only had the main robots at that time. So they wanted to fill out to have more bad guys to fight because it was a beat 'em up. It's kind of like a Metroidvania-ish beat 'em up. So they wanted to add more bad guys. So they created like several of them. We were just always like, oh, they're so cool. We love their designs. And we were like, we got to put them in the show someday. So this was like our last chance. Yeah. Rob, apparently, you know, there are like fans who cared about Rob from the game.
They already did. Yeah. They're already like, is Rob going to show up in the show?
Yeah. And then Sarah is kind of like, it's just a bomb. And then in the booth, we just came up with like the idea that she just like says like she just like says gibberish.
Yeah.
Which kind of reminds me, there is like an old Flash cartoon called the Demented Cartoon Movie with like a bomb that goes like ziggy boogada. And it made me think of like, oh, what if there's just a bomb that says like gibberish?
We could have done a whole episode about that.
Yeah.
What a one Peabody.
And also for the teen characters, I think that's just they're like tall teen and
small teen and tall teen.
Yeah, they you and Ashley like trade your normal role. Like I believe you play the feminine one and Ashley plays the masculine one.
Yeah.
That's great. It was like my last viewing of this when it hit me. I didn't look at the credits closely enough. I'm like, oh, they switched parts. That's Ian there. Yeah.
Yeah, we don't really know who those characters are. In my mind, mind, they were just supposed to be, they're just two new teens who have just taken those roles.
Yeah, our characters have moved on, but the cycle, kind of continues.
Yeah, the cycle continues. I mean, if it's KO's store now, he just basically hired people who reminded him of his old friends.
That's how I read it. My husband was thinking more of like, is that whose kids are these? Like who? Like
I recommend people have all the fun in the world with that question. I love donor theory. That's a great theory.
Donor theory is amazing.
Yeah, that's a popular theory
I'm pro donor theory.
I have a lot of respect for that theory, but I have respect for all of it. It's all great.
Yeah,
it's all valid.
Yeah.
But seeing because that was part of the point is like we want people to fill in the gaps in the way that works for them.
Yeah.
And I like that a lot.
Also, in that last sequence for like it's a real blink if you and you'll miss him is Kid Jammer from the Fighting Games episode of Craig of the Creek. Makes a small appearance in the background.
I did miss that.
Yeah,
wow.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
They threw KO in that episode, so I was like, well, maybe Kid Jammer is interconnected. And to have a sidebar about the Cartoon Network Maryland verse. So
yeah, the Delmarva.
Yeah. So basically, in the Craig of the Creek is probably the top level of reality.
Okay.
But within Craig of the Creek, Steven Universe and OKKO exist as media properties.
Mm-hmm.
However, within Steven Universe, the Rebecca Sugar that exists in the Craig of the Creek universe did references to OKKO that also exists in that universe.
Oh, okay.
So it's like there's a matryoshka of properties.
Well, and Little Butler is a show in Craig of the Creek and Steven Universe.
Yeah. So within the Craig of the Creek universe, the Rebecca Sugar that exists in there was like, I love the show Little Butler, which is a real show. So I'll put that in my show.
Wow.
Yeah.
There needs to be a not just a theory video, but perhaps a full-length documentary directed by, let's say, Errol Morris, breaking this all down.
Yeah.
But so within that, KO is definitely the bottommost level in which it's a cartoon that exists in worlds of other cartoons, which is why it's so heightened and crazy. I guess. I don't know.
That makes sense. It's the most cartoon of cartoon.
Yes.
Okay. I want to be sourced in this theory video. That person makes it.
Yeah, and I love the way that KO looks as an adult is just hilarious.
It's so funny. It made us laugh.
What Mira came up with, when in the original pitch, when KO's head turns and that nose shows up, we all just we laugh so hard.
Yeah.
The long nose is back.
Yes.
That was, oh, what a beautiful ending. I guess the last question I'd say on just the content was like, you had the regular ending song in the show, so it was over the credits. It's just like kind of room tone, or quiet and room tone with like a shot what looks to be your offices in Cartoon Network.
I literally look, all the end credits footage from all the episodes was us just taking my old Canon 7D and shooting stuff. But this was another example of that, where like it was the end of the day. I think I'd actually gone to a movie after work, and I came back to the empty office, and I took a bunch of pictures of just the new, some of the crew was still there, but some of the crew had left, so it had a bit of that feeling. And of course, it was the end of the day, so no one was still working at that moment. And I took a bunch of photos.
I think there's like one other person in the office.
Yeah. I took a bunch of photos, and that was like when the show was still going, there was still a bunch of the crew there, and we had those photos on hand. And then when we decided, we already knew we wanted to do that, but then when it comes to the audio, I went around with a microphone and just recorded sounds of the studio. So I went over to a printer, went over to the AC, went into my own office and recorded just the room tone of the way it actually sounds in there. And so that's the main layer of the audio. But then under that is a recording that Geneva did from the final storyboard pitch.
And that's Geneva Hodgson, our director. Yeah.
And so she was, for the last few months of the show, just documenting as much as she could of the day-to-day of of working on the show.
Wow.
And so she would just record our conversations after the pitches just to have them for posterity. And so, we grabbed the audio of like the very first things that Ian said after the very first pitch of the final episode. And we mix it as low as we possibly could. Off in the distance, I would say almost haunting or ghostly in the way it sounds. And it's just you saying like, well, here we are. We did it. Yeah. It could have gone worse.
Yeah.
And then everyone laughing.
Everyone laughs. Yeah.
And then that's the final thing. And again, it's just final. It's us. The show has always been very, very transparent about its own existence, and so it's us. Just removing the final layer of distance between us and the audience in a lot of ways, and just you get to see what we see.
Yeah, we always wanted to make sure that the audience remembered that these were all drawings that were made by people that are imperfect people and imperfect drawings, and that's really important to us. And to lift that final piece of the veil was important to all of us.
Wow. Man, well, that was quite a postmortem, man.
We will submit this episode for a Peabody.
Thank you. Look, the show. Look, it's not too late, but I'm just saying the show has never been nominated for anything, and it's conspicuous. I think that there's a conspiracy.
But I also say, if there are any OKKO fans listening, the show, you can keep being loud about your love of the show. It's never hopeless. Let's just say that.
And also, I really appreciate the amount that people speak up for how much they wish that things could have gone differently and there could have been more episodes and all of that. But the show is in a really unique position, which is that, yes, we would have loved to do more, but also we got to do quite a few.
We got to do a lot.
112 is not a small number. And so we're in an interesting kind of no man's land between a long-running show and a canceled too soon show. Yeah. And it's really a kind of a unique position to be in. And we were talking about this recently because, I was such an insufferable nerd growing up, and all I would talk about were the shows I loved that got canceled after one season.
We were the same way.
Every day I'd go to work with go to school with my Andy Richter Controls the Universe or my Syphil and Ollie VHS tapes, and I'd hand them to all my friends.
Yeah.
And that was my life. That was just being like, wow, all the best shows, are these special shows that are just for me and all those inspired this show. And then we ended up being, in a way, one of those shows.
We had a moment where we realized, oh no, we made one of those. But it's only because we loved those things so much, and we bonded over those too. So.
Yeah, and we were fortunate enough to have more episodes than something like Andy Richter,
or Mission Hill, or
Stella, things like that.
Even Invader Zim. It's things that were titans to us that we cared about so much.
Yeah, and again, I'm really proud of what we did with the last season and the finale, and I'm now at the point where, as I would have loved to do more, of course, but it's like, if we'd had to keep going, there's no guarantee that it would have ended as well as it did.
Yeah.
And there would have been other challenges. Probably a lot of the crew, was making names for themselves through the show, and they would have gotten much more lucrative offers from other studios, and they would have had to leave, and some of the crew wouldn't have been able to maybe be there for the finale if we'd gone on for longer.
True.
And it would have been a different thing. And so in a lot of ways, like I said earlier, if you asked me to trade what we did for even 20 more episodes, it would be a major challenge of a choice to make. Just because we might not have been able to do it with all the creative team still there.
It's true.
I guess, my last thoughts were thank you for making the show, guys.
The final episode was a gift for fans. I think this podcast is too, with all this information we're getting. So thanks for being on our show.
Of course.
Yes,
thanks for having
us.
Thanks for giving us a rare double dip on What a Cartoon. It's very, very gracious. So thanks so much.
It really is.
Yeah, thank you.
So we'll do our own plugs off the air, but you guys let us know where we can find you on Twitter or wherever else, or any maybe hints of what's going on in the future.
Yeah, you can follow me at IanJQ on Twitter. Anything I do, I'll probably post about it there, or nothing for a lot of time. But stuff is coming soon. I don't know, working on things.
Yeah, I'm Toby Jones on Twitter and Instagram, and same deal. I'm working on stuff for the future. Hopefully, you get to see something one day. Potentially cool stuff that I'm having some fun with. And in the meantime, you can just see me post weird stuff and have fun with that. And we'll just watch the show again. Why not?
Yeah.
So thanks again to Toby Jones and Ian Jones-Quart. We really appreciate them coming on back when we were in LA. And please check out their show, OKKO, Let's Be Heroes. We obviously like it quite a bit, I would say. And if you want to help support our show and get every episode 1 week ahead of time and ad-free, please go to patreon.com/TalkingSimpsons. And if you sign up at the $5 level, you'll get just that, but also access to 100 plus bonus podcasts. Far too many to mention in this wrap-up, but I will mention our most recent miniseries, the 10-episode Talking Futurama Season 2 Part 1, which just wrapped up. There is so much more going on at the Patreon, but Henry can tell you all what's happening at the $10 level extra long podcast every month for patrons.
That's right. Subscribers at Talking Simpsons Network at the $10 level get our monthly What a Cartoon movie podcast. It's like this podcast, but even longer, about a different feature film once a month. Me and Bob talk about The Iron Giant in December 2019, closing out the year, celebrating that landmark movie's 20th anniversary. We go deep into the history of how it was made and scene by scene through the movie over 4 hours. It's a ton of fun, and you can only hear the full thing if you're a $10 subscriber at Patreon, and you'll get to hear over a year's worth of our previous monthly podcast. So please sign up at $10 a month at patreon.com/TalkingSimpsons.
So I've been one of your hosts, Bob Mackey. You can find me on Twitter as Bob Servo. My other podcast is Retronauts, a classic gaming podcast. Every Monday and occasionally on Friday, check out Retronauts.com or look for Retronauts in your podcast machine. If you played a video game, I'm sure you'll like it. Henry, how about you?
You can follow me on Twitter at HENEREYG. I always tweet out when new stuff comes out on the Patreon, or say when we record with cool folks like Ian and Toby when we did it on our last trip. So follow me on Twitter at HENEREYG. Plus, please follow the official Talking Simpsons Network podcast. Plus, please follow the official Talking Simpsons Network's Twitter account at Talk Simpsons Pod, where you'll stay in the loop with all the cool stuff going on with our many, many podcasts. So please, one more time, that's at Talk Simpsons Pod on Twitter.
Thanks so much for listening, everybody, and we will see you next week for the Mushishi episode, The Green Seat, and we will see you then.
It's only magic. Isn't it amazing when you know?
So, that's the story. I hope you liked it.
Every second that you see is 24 connected pieces. Thank you for coming. Thank you for staying.
Thank you for watching the show.
Wait! I forgot to learn a valuable lesson.
Hey kids, does this look like fun to you? Even now? Or now? Huh. Life's an adventure. Don't sleep through it, or you might miss the chance to meet me. And that's no good.